Ethan Parker stood frozen in the center of a glittering hotel ballroom while his ex-wife systematically destroyed his reputation in front of 200 former classmates. Her voice carried across the marble floors, each word designed to cut deeper than the last. Background role in everyone's story. That's all you'll ever be, Ethan. The crowd's laughter felt like acid. Then a hand slipped through his arm, elegant fingers tightening possessively around his elbow, and a voice he knew from boardrooms, not ballrooms, spoke one impossible word. Honey. Everything Ethan thought he knew about his quiet, ordinary life shattered in that single moment. If you want to see how a single father's worst nightmare became his greatest vindication, stay with me until the end. And please, hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago in a cream envelope that felt expensive between Ethan's fingers. 20-year college reunion. The kind of thing he'd normally throw away without opening, except Lily had gotten to the mail first. "Dad, what's a reunion?" she'd asked, her 9-year-old face scrunched in concentration as she studied the embossed lettering. Ethan had taken the envelope gently from her small hands, already composing his mental decline. "It's when people from college get together to catch up." "Are you going?" "Probably not, sweetheart. I've got work and you've got that science project due." "Dad?" Lily had given him that look, the one that made her seem far older than 9, the one that reminded him so much of her mother it hurt, except Lily's eyes held only concern, no calculation. "You never do anything fun. You work, you take care of me, you sleep. That's it." "I like taking care of you," Ethan had said softly, crouching down to her level in their small kitchen. Sunlight filtered through the curtains he'd sewn himself when they'd first moved into this apartment, the one he could actually afford on a secretary's salary. "That's the fun part. But when was the last time you saw your friends?" Ethan hadn't had an answer for that. The truth was, he didn't really have friends anymore. He had Lily, he had his job, he had the parent-teacher association meetings, and the grocery runs and the quiet, exhausting rhythm of single parenthood. Somewhere in the past 7 years since the divorce finalized and Brianna had walked away with barely a backward glance, Ethan's world had narrowed to the essentials. "Let's go," Lily had whispered, wrapping her thin arms around his neck. "Ms. Rodriguez next door can watch me, just for one night. I want you to be happy, Dad." That's how Ethan found himself standing in front of his closet 2 days before the reunion, staring at the limited options hanging there. His work clothes were impeccable. Maris Cole expected nothing less from her executive team, but those were suits meant for boardrooms and investor meetings. This was different. Casual elegance, the invitation had specified, whatever that meant. He'd settled on dark slacks and a charcoal sweater, the nicest things he owned that weren't strictly professional. Looking at himself in the mirror, Ethan had felt a familiar pang of inadequacy. At 42, he was still fit. Stress and constant movement kept him lean, but there were lines around his eyes now, silver threading through his dark hair. He looked tired. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who'd chosen survival over ambition. "You look handsome, Dad," Lily had declared when he emerged from his bedroom that Saturday evening. Ethan had kissed the top of her head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Be good for Miss Rodriguez, okay? I'll be back before midnight." "Dad, it's a party. You're allowed to stay out late." "I'll be back before midnight," he'd repeated, smiling despite his nerves. The hotel was downtown, one of those historic buildings that had been renovated into something simultaneously classic and modern. Ethan's footsteps echoed across the lobby's stone floor as he made his way toward the ballroom. Music and laughter spilled through the open doors, the kind of effortless mingling that had always made him feel like an observer rather than a participant. He recognized faces immediately. Jennifer Ashworth, who'd been student body president and now, according to the name tag she wore, was a state senator. Marcus Webb, former quarterback, shaking hands with a cluster of men who all had that same well-fed, successful glow. Claire Donovan, who'd organized the reunion, spotted him from across the room and waved enthusiastically. "Ethan Parker! Oh my God! I didn't think you'd actually come!" Claire air-kissed both his cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "You look exactly the same. What have you been up to?" Working mostly, Ethan said, accepting the name tag she pressed into his hand. I have a daughter now, Lily. She's 9. How wonderful. And what do you do? I'm an executive secretary, corporate management. Claire's smile didn't falter, but something shifted in her eyes. That quick recalibration people did when they realized you weren't as successful as they'd hoped. That's great, really great. Well, the bar's open and there's food in the back. Mingle! Ethan had been to enough of these things, work functions mostly, to know how to navigate. He got a sparkling water from the bar, found a quiet corner near the windows, and prepared to observe. This was his comfort zone. Watching, listening, making himself small enough that people forgot he was there. He'd been content with that strategy for about 40 minutes. Then he saw her. Brianna Hale, she'd taken back her maiden name after the divorce, stood near the center of the ballroom surrounded by an audience. She'd always been beautiful, but time and money had polished her into something almost intimidating. Designer dress, perfect hair, jewelry that caught the light with every gesture. She was telling some story, her hands moving expressively, and everyone around her was laughing. Ethan's first instinct was to leave, slip out before she noticed him, call it a night, get back to Lily and the life that made sense. But even as he thought it, he knew Lily would be disappointed. She'd asked him to try, to be part of the world again, even just for one evening. He stayed near the windows, nursing his water, telling himself it was a big room. Maybe she wouldn't see him. That hope lasted approximately 12 more minutes. Ethan? Ethan Parker? Brianna's voice carried across the conversation like a blade. Is that really you? The group around her turned to look. Ethan felt his throat tighten, but he managed a small smile. Hello, Brianna. She crossed the distance between them with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her welcome anywhere. Up close, he could see the calculation in her eyes, the same expression she'd worn during their marriage whenever she was about to ask for something she knew he couldn't afford. I didn't expect to see you here, she said, her tone friendly enough that anyone listening wouldn't hear the edge. I thought you'd be too busy with, what was it, your very important secretary job? Executive secretary, Ethan corrected quietly. I manage operations for Shay. Right. Meetings and schedules and coffee orders. She laughed, light and musical, and several people nearby chuckled along. How adorable, still the supporting role in everyone else's story. Ethan felt the familiar heat of embarrassment creeping up his neck, but he kept his voice steady. It's good work. I like it. Of course you do. You always were content with so little. Brianna turned to the small crowd that had begun to gather, drawn by the scent of drama. Did I ever tell you all about my marriage to Ethan? No? Oh, it's quite the cautionary tale. Brianna, we don't need to, Ethan started, but she talked right over him. See, I thought I was getting a partner. Someone with ambition, drive, the qualities adults need to build a life together. Her smile was sharp as glass. But what I got was a man who was perfectly happy being invisible, who thought showing up was the same as succeeding, who couldn't even commit to his own potential, let alone to a marriage. The room had gotten quieter. People were definitely watching now, that mix of fascination and discomfort that came with witnessing someone being torn apart in public. Ethan recognized Marcus Webb in the crowd, and Jennifer Ashworth, and a dozen other faces from classes he'd barely participated in 20 years ago. We have a daughter, Ethan said softly. Lily, she's... Oh yes, the child. Brianna's expression shifted into something that might have looked like sympathy to anyone who didn't know her. Tell me, Ethan, do you still read her those bedtime stories every night? Still doing the whole single dad martyr routine? I'm not a martyr. I'm her father. You're a man who chose limitations over possibilities. Brianna's voice rose just slightly, enough to ensure everyone could hear. You could have been anything, Ethan. Could have taken risks, built something, become someone. But instead you settled for safe, for small, for enough. She gestured at him, encompassing his entire person with one dismissive wave. Look at you. You're wearing the same kind of clothes you wore in college, living the same kind of half-life. I bet you're still in that tiny apartment, aren't you? Still counting pennies and telling yourself it's noble to struggle? Ethan felt something crack inside his chest, but he refused to let it show on his face. He'd learned long ago how to take hits without flinching. 7 years of her criticisms during their marriage had taught him that much. "I provide for my daughter," he said, each word careful and measured. "I keep a roof over her head, food on the table, and I'm there when she needs me. That's not settling. That's choosing what matters." How convenient that what matters is always the easiest option. Brianna laughed again, and this time more people joined in. "You know what your problem is, Ethan? You think showing up is enough. You think just being present makes you a good father, a good employee, a good man. But it doesn't. It makes you background noise, a placeholder. Someone people forget about the moment you leave the room." Someone in the crowd, Ethan didn't see who, muttered something about ouch and brutal. A few people shifted uncomfortably, but nobody stepped in. Nobody told Brianna to stop. This was entertainment now, a spectacle at an otherwise boring reunion. "You couldn't commit to our marriage," Brianna continued, warming to her theme. "You couldn't commit to being a real partner, someone who actually contributed instead of just existing. And now you're raising a child in that same half-hearted way, teaching her that mediocrity is acceptable, that aiming low is somehow virtuous." "Don't talk about how I raise my daughter." Ethan's voice was quiet, but something in it made Brianna pause. "You left, Brianna. You chose to walk away. You don't get to judge the life I've built without you." "Built?" Her eyebrows arched in exaggerated surprise. "You call that building? Ethan, you're surviving. Barely. You're the same scared boy who was too afraid to take chances in college, too afraid to be anything more than adequate. And the saddest part? She leaned in, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that somehow carried perfectly across the silent room. You actually think you're doing well. You think this small, quiet, forgettable life is something to be proud of." Ethan didn't trust himself to speak. His hands were shaking, so he shoved them in his pockets. He could feel the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on him, watching him absorb every blow, waiting to see if he'd finally break or fight back. He did neither. Because fighting back would give Brianna exactly what she wanted. A scene, a drama, proof that she could still get under his skin. And breaking would prove every cruel thing she'd just said about him being weak, being less than, being forgettable. So Ethan stood there, silent and still, and let her words wash over him like poison. "Nothing to say?" Brianna pressed. "No defense? No grand statement about how wrong I am?" She turned to her audience, spreading her hands. "See? This is exactly what I lived with. A man who won't even fight for himself, who just takes it and pretends that makes him noble instead of pathetic." That's when everything changed. A hand slipped through Ethan's arm, warm fingers wrapping around his elbow with easy familiarity. The touch was confident, possessive even, and completely unexpected. Ethan turned his head, words dying in his throat. Maris Cole stood beside him, elegant in a black dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her dark hair was swept up, diamond earrings catching the light, and her expression was serene, the same composed face she wore in boardroom negotiations worth billions of dollars. "Honey," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone of affectionate exasperation reserved for longtime partners. "I'm so sorry I'm late. The meeting ran long and traffic was impossible." The ballroom went completely silent. Ethan's brain stuttered. Maris Cole, his boss. The woman he saw every day in perfectly tailored suits, reviewing contracts and dismantling hostile takeover attempts before breakfast. Maris Cole, who was on the Forbes list and had once made a senator cry during a committee hearing. She was standing in a hotel ballroom with her arm linked through his, calling him honey. Brianna's perfect composure flickered. "I'm sorry, who—" "Maris Cole," she said simply, offering a hand that Brianna shook automatically, clearly still processing. "And you are?" "Brianna Hale. I'm Ethan's ex-wife." The title came out sharp, reclaiming territory. "Ah." Maris's smile didn't waver, but something cooled in her eyes. "The ex-wife. How interesting. Ethan's told me so much about you." Ethan hadn't told Maris anything about Brianna beyond the bare facts required for emergency contact forms. But he was too shocked to correct her, too busy trying to understand what was happening and why his billionaire boss was currently pressed against his side like they shared breakfast every morning. Has he? Brianna's smile had frozen into something brittle. Funny, he hasn't mentioned you at all, but then Ethan was never very good at communication, or commitment, or really showing up when it mattered. Maris tilted her head slightly, the gesture bird-like and predatory. That's fascinating because the Ethan I know shows up every single day. Early, actually. He manages an entire executive office, coordinates meetings across 3 continents, and somehow still makes it to every single one of his daughter's school events. She paused, her smile sharpening. Lily, isn't it? Such a sweet child. We had dinner last week. She makes excellent spaghetti. Ethan's mind reeled. That had been a Wednesday night when he'd invited Ms. Rodriguez over to thank her for watching Lily so often. Maris had been there too, having stopped by to drop off contracts that couldn't wait until morning. She'd stayed for exactly 1 plate of Lily's enthusiastically over-seasoned pasta before excusing herself. But the way Maris told it, you'd think she was a regular fixture at their dinner table. You've met his daughter? Brianna's voice had gotten higher, tighter. Of course. Several times. Maris's hand moved from Ethan's elbow to his back, a casual intimacy that sent electricity down his spine. Ethan's the kind of father who puts his child first. Always. Even when it costs him professionally, which, by the way, it doesn't, because some of us recognize that a man who honors his commitments in one area of life will honor them in all areas. The crowd had shifted. People were whispering now, phones subtly emerging to Google Maris Cole to confirm what their instincts were already telling them. This wasn't just some woman. This was someone important, someone powerful. Someone who didn't show up to college reunions unless there was a very specific reason. Brianna's eyes narrowed. I'm sorry. What did you say your relationship to Ethan is? Maris looked at Ethan, and for just a moment, he saw something flicker across her face, a question, maybe, or an apology for what she was about to do. Then she looked back at Brianna, and her expression settled into absolute certainty. I'm the woman who knows his worth, she said simply. Which is apparently something you never figured out. The ballroom erupted in barely suppressed reactions, gasps, mutters, the sound of someone choking on their drink. Marcus Webb was grinning openly. Claire Donovan had her phone out, recording. Brianna's face had gone pale, then flushed with anger. That's a lovely story, but I think we all know what this really is. Some pity date? A favor for the help? Because let's be honest. She gestured at Ethan again, cruel and dismissive. What else would someone like you be doing with someone like him? Someone like me? Maris's voice dropped 20 degrees. Let me clarify something for you, Ms. Hale. I'm the CEO of Cole Industries. I run a company with 43,000 employees across 6 continents. I have investment portfolios that could buy and sell your entire social circle before lunch. So when I choose to spend my limited personal time with someone, it's because that person has something no amount of money can buy. Integrity, intelligence, and the kind of quiet strength that most people are too shallow to recognize. She turned to Ethan, and her expression softened. Honey, I think we should go. I promised Lily we'd be home before she went to bed, and I'd hate to disappoint her. Ethan found his voice finally, though it came out rough. Maris, you don't have to. I want to, she said firmly. Then to Brianna and the watching crowd. It's been educational meeting you all, particularly you, Ms. Hale. I can see why Ethan doesn't talk about you much. Some chapters aren't worth rereading. She guided Ethan toward the exit, her hand still on his back, moving through the parted crowd like a ship cutting through water. Ethan felt numb, disconnected from his body, aware only of the whispers following them, and Brianna's stricken expression, and the fact that his entire understanding of reality had just been fundamentally altered. They made it to the lobby before Ethan finally pulled away, turning to face Maris with a confusion that bordered on panic. What just happened? He asked. How did you even know I was here? Maris's composure slipped just slightly. She looked suddenly uncertain, an expression Ethan had never seen on her face in 4 years of working together. Your daughter called me. Lily? Lily called you? This afternoon, from Ms. Rodriguez's phone. Maris clasped her hands in front of her, a tell Ethan recognized from difficult negotiations. She was worried about you coming here alone. She thought you might need backup, and apparently I was the only person she could think of who might help. Ethan's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. She shouldn't have bothered you with... She wasn't wrong to be worried, Maris cut in. That woman in there was trying to destroy you in front of everyone you used to know. She wanted to humiliate you, make you look small and forgettable and pathetic. Her voice hardened. And you were going to let her. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a fight, Ethan said quietly. There's a difference between choosing your battles and letting yourself be a victim. Maris stepped closer, and in her heels she was almost eye level with him. You are not forgettable, Ethan. You're not background noise. You're not any of the things she said. You don't have to pretend. I'm not pretending. The words came out sharp, almost angry. Do you think I'd be here if I was pretending? Do you think I'd put my reputation on the line for a publicity stunt? Ethan shook his head, overwhelmed. Then why? Why would you do this? Maris was silent for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Because Lily asked me to. Because she loves her father and she's terrified that he's becoming invisible. And because... She hesitated, then continued. Because I've spent 4 years watching you be exceptional at a job most people can't handle for 4 months. I've watched you sacrifice promotions because they'd mean less time with your daughter. I've seen you stay late to cover for colleagues, arrive early to prepare for my meetings, handle crises with grace and competence that should be legendary. She reached out, straightening his collar in a gesture that felt both professional and impossibly intimate. And I've never once told you how much I value you, how essential you are, how much I've come to respect not just your work, but who you are as a person. So when your daughter called me crying, asking if I could please make sure you were okay tonight, I realized something. What? Ethan whispered. That she's not the only one who sees you, Ethan. I see you too. I always have. The lobby seemed to tilt slightly. Ethan gripped the edge of a nearby chair to steady himself. Maris, I don't understand what's happening right now. Neither do I, completely, she admitted, and there was something vulnerable in her expression now, something almost frightened. I came here tonight planning to play a role, to be your backup, like Lily asked, to make sure that awful woman couldn't hurt you. She laughed softly, without humor. But standing in there, listening to her tear you apart, watching you take it because you're too good to fight dirty, I realized I wasn't pretending at all. You can't mean... I don't know what I mean yet, Maris said honestly. I know you're my employee. I know there are rules and complications and a dozen reasons this conversation should never be happening. She met his eyes directly, and Ethan saw real uncertainty there, real fear. But I also know that woman in there is wrong about you. Completely, fundamentally wrong. And I couldn't stand there and let her be right. Ethan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out automatically, saw Lily's name on the screen. A text from Ms. Rodriguez's phone. Did Ms. Cole find you? Are you okay, Dad? He showed the message to Maris, who smiled despite herself. She's worried about you. She worries too much, Ethan said, but his voice was thick with emotion. She's 9. She should be thinking about dolls and friends, not about whether her dad is okay at a college reunion. She's thinking about it because she loves you, Maris said gently. And because she's smart enough to see what you can't, that you deserve better than silence in the face of cruelty. Ethan looked at his phone, at Maris, at the ballroom doors where he could still hear music and laughter, and probably endless speculation about what they'd all just witnessed. I should go home. Yes, Maris agreed. You should. She hesitated, then added, I'll follow you. Make sure you get there safely. You don't have to... Ethan. She touched his arm, brief and light. Let me do this. For Lily, if not for you. They walked to the parking garage in silence, Maris's heels clicking against concrete, Ethan's thoughts racing too fast to catch. His car, a reliable sedan that had seen better years, was parked near the elevator. Maris's vehicle, a sleek black Tesla, was 3 spots away. Thank you, Ethan said, unlocking his door. For tonight, for what you did in there. I know it was just... Don't, Maris interrupted. Don't diminish it by calling it just anything. What happened tonight mattered. To me, to Lily. And whether you want to admit it or not, to you. She walked to her car without waiting for a response, and Ethan stood there, key in hand, wondering if everything he'd believed about his life had just been proven wrong. The drive home took 20 minutes. Maris's headlights followed him the entire way, a constant presence in his rearview mirror. When he pulled into his apartment complex, modest, safe, exactly as Brianna had described, she pulled in behind him, parking in the visitor's spot. They walked up the 2 flights of stairs together, and Ethan found himself acutely aware of every detail: the chipped paint on the railing, the threadbare carpet, the sound of a neighbor's television through thin walls. This was his life. Small, simple, exactly as Brianna had said. But Maris didn't seem to see it that way. She looked around with genuine interest, not judgment. Ms. Rodriguez opened the door before Ethan could use his key, Lily right behind her. The moment Lily saw him, saw both of them, her face split into a relieved smile. "Dad! Ms. Cole! You're both here!" Ethan crouched down, and Lily threw herself into his arms with the fierce certainty of a child who'd been more worried than she'd let on. "Hey, sweetheart. Everything okay?" "I was scared," Lily whispered into his shoulder. "I know I shouldn't have called Ms. Cole, but I didn't want you to be alone, and I thought maybe she could help because she's so smart and strong, and—" "You did good," Ethan said, surprising himself. He looked up at Maris, who was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You did really good, Lily." Ms. Rodriguez excused herself with a knowing smile, and suddenly it was just the 3 of them in Ethan's small living room. Him, his daughter, and the billionaire CEO who'd just upended his entire understanding of the world. "Did it work?" Lily asked, looking between them. "Did Ms. Cole help?" "She helped a lot," Ethan said honestly. "Good." Lily turned to Maris with absolute seriousness. "Thank you for taking care of my dad. He always takes care of everyone else, but sometimes he needs someone too." Maris knelt down, elegant dress and all, to be at Lily's eye level. "Your father is one of the best men I know, Lily. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." "I won't," Lily promised. Then, with the brutal honesty of 9-year-olds, "Are you guys dating now? Because that would be really cool." "Lily." Ethan felt his face flush, but Maris just laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "That's a very good question, and I think your dad and I need to figure out the answer ourselves before we share it with anyone else. Even you." She stood, smoothing her dress. "But I promise you this. Whatever happens, I'll always value your father. Always respect him. Always see him for who he really is." Lily seemed satisfied with that. She hugged Maris with the unself-conscious affection of a child who'd decided someone was safe, then yawned dramatically. "I should probably go to bed." "Probably," Ethan agreed, his heart still racing. He tucked Lily in, listened to her chatter about her evening with Miss Rodriguez, kissed her forehead, and promised her everything was okay. When he emerged from her bedroom, Maris was standing by the window, looking out at the city lights. "I should go," she said without turning around. "It's late, and Monday is going to be complicated enough without—" "Maris," Ethan crossed the small space between them. "What you said in there, in the lobby, did you mean it?" She finally looked at him, and her expression was raw in a way he'd never seen. "Every word." "Then what happens now?" "I don't know," she admitted. "This is uncharted territory for me, Ethan. I don't do this. I don't cross professional lines. I don't put myself in positions where I'm vulnerable or uncertain or—" She broke off, frustrated. "I spent 4 years being your boss, being professional, being appropriate, and then your daughter called me crying, and none of that mattered anymore." Ethan took a careful step closer. "What mattered?" "You," Maris said simply. "You mattered. You always have. I just didn't let myself acknowledge it, because acknowledging it meant risking everything we'd built professionally. But tonight, watching you stand there while she tried to make you invisible, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't pretend I didn't see you, didn't value you, didn't—" She stopped herself, shaking her head. "I'm not saying this right." "You're saying it perfectly," Ethan said quietly. They stood there in his small living room, the space between them charged with possibility and fear, and something neither was quite ready to name. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic. Inside, everything was still. "Take Monday off," Maris said finally, her professional voice sliding back into place like armor. You've earned it, and we both need time to think about what happens next. And if what happens next is complicated? A smile ghosted across her face. Then we'll handle it the way we handle everything else, with intelligence, integrity, and a complete disregard for what people think we should do. She moved toward the door, and Ethan followed, not ready for her to leave, but not sure how to ask her to stay. At the threshold, Maris paused. Ethan, what that woman said tonight about you being forgettable, being background noise, she couldn't have been more wrong. Maris met his eyes, steady and certain. You're the person people notice when it matters, when everything is falling apart and someone needs to hold it together, when the work is hard and unglamorous and essential. That's when people see you. That's when you shine. I don't feel like I shine, Ethan said honestly. I know. That's what makes it real. She touched his cheek just briefly, her hand warm against his skin. Get some sleep. Take care of Lily. And remember, you don't have to be loud to be seen, not by the people who matter. She left, and Ethan stood in his doorway watching her walk down the stairs, elegant and powerful and somehow more human than she'd ever seemed before. Inside, his phone buzzed with incoming messages. He pulled it out, saw the reunion group chat had exploded with speculation. Someone had posted a photo, Maris's arm through his, the two of them looking at each other, her expression fierce and protective. There were questions, theories, a dozen people suddenly remembering they'd always thought Ethan was great, actually. Marcus Webb had sent a direct message. Dude, holy shit. That was incredible. But the message that mattered came from an unknown number. This is Claire. I just wanted to say, Brianna planned that ambush. She told several of us beforehand that she was going to put you in your place tonight. What she did wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated. And after what happened, after your girlfriend, partner, stepped in, Brianna left. She's humiliated. Everyone's talking about how classy Ms. Cole was and how cruel Brianna looked in comparison. I thought you should know. Ethan read the message 3 times, feeling something settle in his chest. Brianna had planned it, had orchestrated his humiliation like a performance. And still, even knowing that, he didn't feel angry. He felt free. Because Maris was right. He didn't have to fight in Brianna's way to win. He didn't have to defend himself against calculated cruelty. He just had to keep being who he was, showing up, staying honest, choosing what mattered. And somehow, miraculously, that had been enough. In her room, Lily was already asleep, her nightlight casting soft shadows across her peaceful face. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching her breathe, and felt gratitude wash over him so completely it hurt. This was his life. Small apartment, tight budget, simple routines, but it was also Lily's laughter and Ms. Rodriguez's kindness, and a job that challenged him, and now, impossibly, Maris Cole looking at him like he was something precious she'd only just discovered. He thought about Monday, about going back to work and facing whatever came next, about navigating the complicated space between professional and personal, between what was safe and what might be extraordinary. And for the first time in 7 years, Ethan Parker let himself imagine a future that included more than just survival. That included possibility. That included being seen, truly seen, by someone who understood exactly what that meant. In his pocket, his phone buzzed one more time. He pulled it out, saw Maris's name. Just 3 words, sent at nearly midnight. Sleep well, honey. Ethan smiled in the darkness of his quiet apartment, and for the first time all night, he felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Ethan didn't sleep well. He lay in bed staring at his ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening until the details blurred together into something that felt more like a fever dream than reality. Around 3 in the morning, he finally drifted off, only to wake 2 hours later to Lily jumping on his bed. Dad! Dad, wake up! It's Sunday! You promised we'd make pancakes! He groaned, pulling a pillow over his face. Lily, it's 5 in the morning. It's almost 6, she corrected, tugging the pillow away. Her face was bright with excitement, no trace of the worry from last night. Come on, I want to hear everything about the reunion. Ethan sat up slowly, his body aching with exhaustion. There's not much to tell. Ms. Rodriguez said Ms. Cole came to help you. She said you both looked really happy when you came home. Lily bounced on her knees, making the mattress squeak. So what happened? Did you have fun? Did everyone remember you? Did Ms. Cole really pretend to be your girlfriend? She didn't pretend, Ethan said carefully, then realized how that sounded. I mean, she didn't say she was my girlfriend exactly. She helped me with a difficult situation. What kind of difficult situation? Ethan debated how much to share. Lily was 9, perceptive beyond her years, but still a child. He didn't want to burden her with the ugliness of what Brianna had tried to do, but he also didn't want to lie. Your mom was there, he said finally, and she said some things that weren't very kind. Ms. Cole stood up for me. Lily's expression darkened. Mom was mean to you? She was trying to be, Ethan admitted, but it didn't work the way she wanted it to. Because Ms. Cole protected you? Something like that. Lily threw her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. Good. You deserve someone who protects you, Dad. You always protect everyone else. Ethan held his daughter, breathing in the strawberry scent of her hair, and felt his chest tighten with emotion. When did you get so wise, huh? I've always been wise. You just don't notice because you're busy being responsible. She pulled back, grinning. Now, can we please make pancakes? I'm starving. They made pancakes together, Lily chattering about her evening with Miss Rodriguez while Ethan tried to focus on not burning breakfast. His phone kept buzzing on the counter, more messages from the reunion group chat, a few texts from former classmates he barely remembered, one missed call from a number he didn't recognize, and 3 messages from Maris, sent early that morning. The first, I hope you slept better than I did. The second, we should talk, really talk, not Monday, sooner. The third, are you free this afternoon? I could come by, or we could meet somewhere neutral if that's easier. Ethan stared at the messages while Lily drowned her pancakes in syrup. Neutral territory would be safer, more appropriate, but the thought of having this conversation in a coffee shop or restaurant where anyone might overhear or recognize them made his stomach turn. He typed back, Lily has soccer at 2. After that, you could come over, around 4? The response came within seconds. I'll be there. Lily looked up from her breakfast, syrup on her chin. Who are you texting? Mrs. Cole. She's coming over this afternoon. Really? Lily's face lit up. Is she coming for dinner? Can I show her my science project? Oh, can we make that pasta she liked last time? I think she's just coming to talk, Ethan said carefully. Adult stuff. Boring. Talking to Ms. Cole is never boring, Lily declared with absolute certainty. She knows everything about everything. Last time she was here, she helped me with my math homework and explained compound interest using Pokemon cards. It was amazing. Ethan smiled despite his nerves. That sounded exactly like Maris, taking a 9-year-old's interest seriously, meeting her where she was. It was the same quality that made her such an effective CEO. She never talked down to people, never dismissed perspectives just because they came from unexpected sources. The morning passed in a blur of normal Sunday activities. Laundry, grocery shopping, Lily practicing her dribbling in the parking lot before soccer. Ethan watched her run drills with the other kids, their shouts echoing across the field, and tried not to think about what 4 o'clock would bring. But his mind wouldn't cooperate. It kept circling back to the lobby, to Maris's face when she'd said she wasn't pretending, to the way her hand had felt against his cheek, warm and certain and impossibly gentle. A shadow fell across him, and Ethan looked up to find another soccer parent settling onto the bench beside him, Rachel Kim, whose daughter Maya was Lily's best friend. They'd chatted dozens of times about pickup logistics and school events, the easy surface-level friendship of parents thrown together by their children's activities. Hey, Ethan, Rachel said, her tone carefully casual. So I saw something interesting online this morning. Ethan's stomach sank. Oh? Someone from your college reunion posted photos. You and a very elegant woman who apparently put your ex-wife in her place? Rachel raised her eyebrows. Care to share? It's complicated, Ethan managed. It always is with exes. Rachel's expression softened into something like sympathy. For what it's worth, the comments were all on your side. People were saying your ex was way out of line, and the mystery woman, Maris Cole, right, was incredible, classy and fierce. She paused. Also, people were very impressed that you're apparently dating a billionaire CEO. We're not... Ethan stopped himself. What were they exactly? It's not what it looks like. Ethan, I've known you for 2 years. I've watched you juggle work and parenting like a champion, always showing up even when you're clearly exhausted. If anyone deserves someone amazing, it's you." Rachel stood as the coach called the kids in for a water break. Don't talk yourself out of good things just because they seem too big. Sometimes the universe gets it right. She walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving him alone with thoughts that refused to settle into any coherent pattern. The soccer game ended with Lily's team winning 3-2. She was flushed and happy, talking nonstop about the goal she'd almost scored as they drove home. Ethan listened, responding at the right moments, but his mind was already racing ahead to 4 o'clock. They got back to the apartment at 3:30. Lily showered and changed while Ethan straightened the living room, suddenly seeing it through Maris's eyes. The furniture was mismatched, collected from thrift stores and hand-me-downs. The art on the walls was Lily's school projects in cheap frames. Everything was clean but worn, loved but clearly budget-conscious. Last night, Maris hadn't seemed to notice or care, but last night had been charged with adrenaline and emotion and Lily's grateful hugs. Today would be different. Today they'd have to actually talk about what had happened, what it meant, where they went from here. The knock came at exactly 4 o'clock. Maris was nothing if not punctual. Ethan opened the door to find her in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. He'd never seen her in casual clothes before. At work, she was all sleek suits and perfectly styled professionalism. This version of her felt both more approachable and somehow more intimidating. "Hi," she said, and there was uncertainty in her voice that made Ethan's heart clench. "Hi, come in." Lily appeared from her room the moment Maris crossed the threshold. "Miss Cole, you're here! Do you want to see my science project? It's about renewable energy, and I made a model wind turbine out of recyclables." Maris's smile was genuine, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "I would love to see it, Lily, but I think your dad and I need to talk about some grown-up things first. Would that be okay?" Lily looked between them, her expression turning serious. "Are you guys going to talk about last night? About how you saved Dad from Mom?" "Something like that," Maris said gently. "Okay. But afterwards, wind turbine. Promise?" "I promise." Lily retreated to her room with obvious reluctance, closing the door but probably pressing her ear against it the moment she thought they couldn't hear. Ethan gestured to the couch, and Maris sat, her hands folded in her lap. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. "I don't know how to start this conversation," Maris admitted finally. "I've run billion-dollar negotiations without breaking a sweat, but sitting here with you, I don't have the first clue what to say." "You could start with the truth," Ethan suggested quietly. "Why did you really come last night?" "I told you. Lily called me." "And you came running because a 9-year-old asked you to?" "Maris, you don't do spontaneous. You plan everything 3 moves ahead. So what was really going on?" Maris was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on her hands. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. "Do you remember the Hendricks merger? 3 months ago?" Ethan frowned at the apparent subject change. "Of course. You were negotiating around the clock for 2 weeks straight. Do you remember what happened on day 13? He thought back, pulling up the memory. Day 13 had been brutal. Maris had been in back-to-back meetings from 6 in the morning, and around 8 at night the other side had tried to spring a last-minute change that would have gutted the entire deal. Ethan had been the one to catch it, buried in an appendix most people wouldn't have read carefully. He'd interrupted the meeting, something he never did, to point out the discrepancy. "You caught their attempt to renegotiate terms," Ethan said slowly. "Saved us from signing away leverage we'd spent 2 weeks building." "You saved me from making a $100 million mistake," Maris corrected. "And when I asked you later why you'd been reading the full appendices at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, when you should have been home with Lily, do you remember what you said?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "I said it was my job." "You said it was your job to make sure I had everything I needed to succeed." Maris finally looked up, and her eyes were bright with emotion. "Not the company, not the shareholders. Me. You said you were there to make sure I succeeded." "That's what an executive secretary does." "No, Ethan, that's what someone who cares does." She leaned forward slightly, her intensity focused entirely on him. I went home that night and I realized I'd been thinking about you differently for months. Maybe longer. The way you always arrived early with my coffee exactly how I like it. The way you remembered every detail I mentioned in passing, my mother's birthday, that I was nervous about a board meeting, that I'd been too busy to eat lunch. The way you made my impossible schedule somehow manageable while raising a daughter on your own and never once complaining. I was doing my job, Ethan repeated, but his voice had gotten rough. You were doing so much more than your job, and I think part of me knew it. But I couldn't acknowledge it because acknowledging it meant admitting I'd started looking forward to seeing you every morning, that your quiet competence had become the most stable thing in my chaotic world, that somewhere along the way you'd stopped being just my secretary and started being— She broke off, shaking her head. I don't even know what word to use. Essential, Ethan suggested quietly. Essential, Maris agreed, irreplaceable, important in ways that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with who you are as a person. Ethan felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. So when Lily called me, crying, saying her dad was going to face his ex-wife alone and she was scared he'd get hurt, I didn't even think. I just got in my car and drove. Maris's hands twisted together, the only sign of her nervousness. I told myself I was doing it for her, being a good boss, helping an employee's child, but the moment I walked into that ballroom and saw you standing there while that woman tried to destroy you, her voice hardened. I wanted to destroy her. I wanted to make her hurt the way she was hurting you, and that's when I knew. Knew what? That this stopped being professional a long time ago. Maris met his eyes directly. Maybe it was never professional, not really. Maybe I've been lying to myself for years, telling myself I valued you as an employee when what I actually felt was so much more complicated than that. Ethan's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Maris, you're my boss. There are rules about this kind of thing, policies. You could get in trouble. I don't care about the policies, Maris said fiercely. I care about you. I care about the fact that you're brilliant and kind, and you sacrifice yourself daily for people who don't even notice. I care that you're raising an incredible daughter while working a demanding job and somehow still managing to be the most honorable man I've ever met. And I care that someone tried to make you feel small last night when you are anything but. I am small, Ethan said quietly. Compared to you, compared to what you've built, if you say you're ordinary, I'm going to lose my mind. Maris stood abruptly, pacing to the window. You are not ordinary, Ethan. You're not forgettable. You're not any of the things she said. You're the person who keeps an entire executive office running smoothly while dealing with impossible demands and constant chaos. You're the father who never misses a school event even when it means staying up until midnight to finish work. You're the man who covers for colleagues without seeking credit, who solves problems before I even know they exist, who makes everyone around you better just by being exactly who you are. She turned back to face him, and there were tears in her eyes now. So no, you're not small, you're not ordinary, and I'm done pretending I don't see you for who you really are. Ethan stood slowly, his legs unsteady. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try. I want to figure out what this is between us. Policies and complications be damned. I want to— She stopped herself, visibly struggling. I want to take you to dinner, real dinner, not business. I want to get to know Lily better, not as your boss, but as someone who cares about you both. I want to see if this thing I've been feeling for months, maybe years, is something real or just my imagination running wild. And if it's real? Ethan's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. Then we figure it out together, Maris said simply. One step at a time, carefully, honestly. The way you approach everything in your life. They stood there, the afternoon light slanting through the window between them, and Ethan felt the last of his resistance crumble. Because she was right. This thing between them, whatever it was, had been building for longer than he'd let himself acknowledge. Every morning when she smiled at him over her coffee. Every late night when they'd worked side by side, comfortable in shared silence. Every moment when she'd treated him not as staff but as an equal, someone whose opinion mattered, whose presence she valued. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I haven't dated in 7 years. I have a daughter who comes first, always. I work for you, which makes everything complicated. And I'm terrified that if we try this and it doesn't work, I'll lose the best job I've ever had, and Lily will lose someone she's starting to care about. I'm terrified too, Maris said. I've spent my entire adult life building walls between my personal and professional life. I don't let people in. I don't take risks with relationships because I've seen how badly they can end. But Ethan, she crossed the space between them, close enough that he could smell her perfume. I think you're worth the risk. I think we might be worth the risk. What about work? What about the policies? I'll talk to HR. We'll do this properly. Disclose the relationship, establish boundaries. If necessary, I'll shift you to report to someone else, though the thought of not having you as my assistant makes me want to cry. A small smile touched her lips. But I'd rather have you in my life honestly than keep you at work through professional distance. Ethan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand, marveling at how perfectly it fit in his. This is crazy. Probably, Maris agreed. Is that a yes? Before Ethan could answer, Lily's door flew open. Are you guys done talking? Because I really need to show Ms. Cole my wind turbine, and also I'm supposed to tell you that Miss Rodriguez is making empanadas if you want to stay for dinner, Ms. Cole. And Dad, you should probably say yes to whatever Ms. Cole just asked you because you have that face you get when you're happy, but trying not to show it. Maris laughed, the sound bright and genuine. What face is that? The soft one, Lily said matter-of-factly. The one he gets when I show him my good test scores or when we watch movies together. The one that means he's happy but doesn't want to make a big deal about it because he thinks being happy is showing off or something. I do not think that, Ethan protested weakly. You totally do, Lily insisted. She looked at Maris with absolute seriousness. So are you going to date my dad or what? Because that would be really cool. And also, I already told Maya Kim that you were basically my dad's girlfriend after last night, and she said her mom saw the photos online and everyone thinks you guys are perfect together. Lily! Ethan felt his face burn. You can't just... We haven't even... It's okay, Maris said, squeezing his hand. She looked at Lily with the same respect she gave to board members and investors. I would very much like to date your dad, Lily, if he says yes, and if you're okay with it. I'm totally okay with it, Lily said immediately. Dad deserves someone awesome, and you're like the most awesome person I know besides Dad and Maya and maybe Ms. Rodriguez because she makes really good empanadas. High praise, Maris said solemnly. So is that a yes, Dad? Lily looked at Ethan expectantly. Because you're still doing the face. Ethan looked at his daughter, bright and hopeful and so certain that good things were possible, and then at Maris, who was watching him with an expression that made his heart ache in the best possible way. Yes, he said quietly. It's a yes. Lily cheered and immediately grabbed Maris's free hand, tugging her toward the bedroom. Great. Now you have to see my wind turbine. I use plastic bottles and cardboard, and it actually spins when you blow on it. Come on. Maris let herself be dragged away, glancing back at Ethan with a smile that held equal parts amusement and wonder. And Ethan stood alone in his living room, holding onto the ghost of her touch, and tried to process the fact that his entire life had just changed in the space of 24 hours. His phone buzzed. Another message in the reunion group chat, this one from Marcus Webb. Just want to say, whatever happened with you and Maris Cole, it's the best thing I've seen in years. Brianna left the reunion early looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Everyone's talking about how classy your girl was and how desperate Brianna looked trying to tear you down. You won, man. Completely. Ethan stared at the message, then deleted the group chat entirely. He didn't need their validation, didn't need to know what people were saying or thinking or speculating about. Because Marcus was wrong about one thing. This wasn't about winning or losing. It was about choosing something real over something safe. About letting himself be seen, truly seen, by someone who actually understood what they were looking at. From Lily's room he heard laughter, Maris's low and warm, Lily's high and delighted. He followed the sound, stopping in the doorway to watch them bent over the science project together. Maris asking technical questions, and Lily explaining with the passionate intensity of a child who'd found her audience. Maris looked up, caught him watching, and smiled. Not the professional smile she wore at work or the polite one she used with clients. This was soft and private and meant just for him. And Ethan thought maybe, just maybe, Rachel Kim had been right. Sometimes the universe got it right. Sometimes good things weren't too big. Sometimes they were exactly the right size, arriving at exactly the right moment if you were brave enough to reach for them. "Dad, you have to hear this," Lily called out. "Ms. Cole knows about sustainable energy grids, and she says my wind turbine design could actually work on a bigger scale if we adjusted the blade angle." Ethan crossed the room, settling on the floor beside them, and let himself fall into the easy rhythm of Lily's enthusiasm and Maris's genuine interest. Outside, the afternoon faded into evening. Miss Rodriguez's empanadas would be ready soon. Tomorrow, he'd have to figure out how to navigate work with this new reality hanging between them. But right now, in this moment, with his daughter happy and Maris's shoulder warm against his, Ethan Parker let himself believe that maybe he deserved this. Maybe he'd earned it, one small act of showing up at a time, until someone finally noticed all the quiet ways he'd been extraordinary all along. And maybe that was enough. Monday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. Ethan woke at 5:30, his usual time, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling while his mind raced through every possible scenario for how today could go catastrophically wrong. Maris had told him to take the day off, but that felt like hiding, and Ethan had never been good at hiding from difficult things. He made coffee, packed Lily's lunch, and tried to ignore the nervous energy vibrating through his entire body. Maris had stayed for dinner last night, charming Mrs. Rodriguez and making Lily laugh until she had hiccups. She'd left around 8, squeezing Ethan's hand at the door and promising they'd figure out the work situation together. But alone in the pre-dawn quiet of his kitchen, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he'd made a terrible mistake, that walking into Cole Industries today would expose them both to judgment and gossip and complications neither of them had fully thought through. His phone lit up with the message from Maris. "I know you're awake and spiraling. Stop. We're going to be fine. See you at 9 for our regular morning meeting." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. She knew him too well. He got Lily ready for school, deflecting her excited questions about whether Ms. Cole was his girlfriend now, with vague answers that satisfied neither of them. At the bus stop, Maya Kim bounced over immediately. "Lily says your dad has a girlfriend and she's super rich and pretty," Maya announced at full volume. "Maya," Lily hissed, her face turning red. "Is it true?" Maya's mother Rachel appeared behind her daughter, giving Ethan an amused look. "Because if it is, good for you." "It's complicated," Ethan managed, watching the school bus approach with relief. "Everything worth having is complicated," Rachel said easily. "Just don't overthink it to death, Ethan. You have a tendency to do that." The girls climbed onto the bus, already deep in conversation. Rachel patted Ethan's shoulder before heading to her car, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the growing certainty that everyone in his life was going to have an opinion about this. The drive to Cole Industries took 35 minutes through morning traffic. Ethan had made this commute 5 days a week for 4 years, but today it felt different. He parked in his usual spot in the employee garage, rode the elevator to the 43rd floor, and stepped into the executive suite he'd helped run for longer than most people lasted in these high-pressure positions. Janet from accounting was already at the coffee station. She looked up when Ethan entered, her expression doing a complicated journey from normal Monday morning exhaustion to something between curiosity and awe. "Ethan, you're here. I thought you'd taken the day off." "Change of plans," Ethan said, heading for his desk. "So, is it true?" Janet followed him, lowering her voice conspirationally. "About you and Miss Cole?" "Because there are photos circulating and people are talking, and honestly, good for you, but also how did that even happen?" Ethan set his bag down carefully, buying time. "I'd rather not discuss my personal life at work, Janet." "Right, of course, totally professional." She paused for exactly 3 seconds. "But seriously, she stood up for you in front of your awful ex-wife? That's so romantic, like something from a movie." "Janet, please." She held up her hands in surrender. Okay. But just so you know, everyone's on your side. The photos made you both look amazing and your ex-wife look like a nightmare. So whatever happens, you've got support." She left, and Ethan sank into his desk chair, already exhausted. It wasn't even 7 in the morning, and the gossip had already started. By lunchtime, the entire building would probably know, or think they knew, what was happening between him and Maris. He pulled up his calendar, reviewing the day's schedule. Maris had back-to-back meetings from 9 until 3, a brief window for paperwork, then a conference call with the Singapore office at 4. Normal Monday chaos. Ethan started preparing materials for the morning meetings, falling into the familiar rhythm of his work. At 8:45, the private elevator dinged. Maris stepped out, elegant in a navy suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She looked every inch the powerful CEO, completely composed and professional. Her eyes found Ethan immediately, and something softened in her expression. "Good morning, Ethan." "Good morning, Miss Cole." She paused, a slight smile touching her lips. "Still Miss Cole here?" "I thought we should keep things professional at work," Ethan said carefully, aware that Janet had reappeared and was pretending to organize files while clearly eavesdropping. "Of course." Maris's tone was perfectly neutral, but her eyes held warmth. "Could you bring the Hendricks files to my office? We should review before the 9 o'clock. Ethan gathered the materials and followed her into her private office, closing the door behind them. The moment they were alone, Maris's professional mask slipped slightly. "You didn't take the day off," she said. "I don't hide from difficult things." "This doesn't have to be difficult." She moved closer, close enough that Ethan could smell her perfume. "We disclose the relationship to HR, establish clear boundaries at work, and conduct ourselves professionally. People will talk for a few days, then something else will become interesting and they'll move on. And if they don't move on, if this becomes a distraction or causes problems for you, then we handle it." Maris reached out, straightening his tie even though it was already perfectly straight. "Together, that's what this means, Ethan. You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." A knock interrupted them. Maris stepped back smoothly, her expression shifting back into professional mode. "Come in." The door opened to reveal David Chen, the CFO, looking harried. "Maris, we have a situation with the Singapore contract. They're pushing back on the timeline," and he noticed Ethan, nodded politely. "Morning, Ethan." "David." Ethan handed the Hendricks files to Maris. "I'll let you handle this. I have the conference room set up for your 9 o'clock. He left them to their crisis management, grateful for the interruption. In the outer office, more people had arrived. The whispers followed him as he moved between desks, preparing for the morning meeting. He caught fragments of conversation. Reunion photos, billionaire girlfriend, didn't know he had it in him. The 9 o'clock meeting was with the marketing team presenting their Q2 campaign. Ethan sat in his usual spot, taking notes, managing the presentation flow, doing all the small, essential things that kept meetings running smoothly. Maris was brilliant as always, asking pointed questions and identifying weaknesses in the strategy before the presenters had finished speaking. But twice during the meeting, Ethan caught her looking at him with an expression that had nothing to do with quarterly projections. And twice, he felt his chest tighten with something between fear and hope. The meeting ended at 10:30. The marketing team filtered out, several casting curious glances at Ethan. He was gathering his notes when Maris's hand touched his arm lightly. "My office, 5 minutes." She left before he could respond. Ethan finished organizing the materials, hyper-aware that everyone was watching, judging, speculating about every interaction between them. In Maris's office, she was standing by the window overlooking the city. She didn't turn when Ethan entered. "I spoke to HR this morning," she said quietly. "Informed them we're pursuing a personal relationship and requesting guidance on proper protocols." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What did they say?" "They're reviewing the employee handbook and will have recommendations by end of day." She finally turned to face him. "The head of HR, Patricia, asked if I was certain this was a good idea given the potential complications." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I've spent 4 years watching you be the best assistant I've ever had. And if pursuing a personal relationship means losing you as my assistant, I'm willing to pay that price." Maris's voice was steady, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. "I also told her that I trust you to maintain professionalism regardless of our personal involvement, and that anyone who thinks our relationship would compromise my judgment or your integrity doesn't know either of us very well." "Maris, you don't have to sacrifice your perfect working relationship for what? For you?" She crossed to him, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Ethan, you're not a sacrifice. You're the opposite of a sacrifice. You're something I want badly enough to navigate complicated corporate policies and deal with gossip and restructure the best working relationship I've ever had. What if HR says we can't do this? Then I'll figure something out. Promote you to a different department. Find you a position that doesn't report directly to me. Whatever it takes. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. Unless you're having second thoughts, because if you are, tell me now. I can handle rejection, but I can't handle uncertainty. Ethan looked at their joined hands, at this brilliant, powerful woman who was willing to upend her carefully controlled professional life for him, and felt his last defenses crumble. I'm not having second thoughts, he said quietly. I'm terrified, but not uncertain. Good. She squeezed his hand once, then released it. Now, I have a meeting with the board in 15 minutes and you need to prepare the quarterly reports. We're going to be completely professional until HR gives us guidelines. Can you do that? I've been completely professional for 4 years, Ethan pointed out. Yes, but now I know what your hand feels like in mine, and I know what Lily looks like when she's excited about wind turbines, and I know that you drink your coffee black because you're too practical for sugar. Maris's smile was soft and private. Being professional is going to be significantly harder with all that information. She was right. The rest of the day was an exercise in restraint. Every meeting, every briefing, every moment they were in the same room together hummed with awareness. Ethan caught himself watching the way Maris gestured when she was passionate about something, the way she worried her lower lip when reviewing contracts, the way her eyes sought his across conference tables. And he wasn't the only one noticing. By lunchtime, the executive floor was alive with speculation. People found excuses to walk past Ethan's desk. The break room conversation stopped when he entered. His phone buzzed with texts from colleagues he barely knew, all some variation of, "Is it true about you and Ms. Cole?" At 2 o'clock, Patricia from HR requested a meeting with both of them. They sat in her office like students called to the principal, while Patricia reviewed the relevant sections of the employee handbook with the solemnity of someone delivering serious news. The company doesn't prohibit relationships between employees at different levels, Patricia said, reading from her notes. However, it does require disclosure, which you've provided. It also requires that direct reporting relationships be restructured to avoid conflicts of interest. Maris's expression didn't change. What are you proposing? Ethan would need to report to someone other than you. I've discussed options with David Chen. He's willing to take Ethan as his executive assistant, which would keep him at the same level in salary while removing the direct reporting relationship. No, Maris said immediately. Patricia blinked. I'm sorry? David is brilliant with numbers but terrible with people. He'd waste Ethan's talents on spreadsheets and data analysis. Ethan's strength is operational management, coordination, strategic support. Moving him to finance would be a massive step backward in his career development. Then what do you suggest? Maris was quiet for a moment, her mind clearly working through alternatives. What if we created a new position, Director of Executive Operations? Ethan would still support the executive office, but would report directly to the COO instead of me. He'd coordinate between all C-suite executives rather than working exclusively for me. Patricia made notes. That could work. It would require a formal job description and approval from the board. I can have that ready by tomorrow, Maris said. And I'll discuss it with the COO this afternoon. There's one more thing. Patricia looked uncomfortable. There's already been significant office gossip about your relationship. Photos from the reunion are circulating online, and people are talking. Let them talk, Maris said coolly. As long as we're following company policy, their opinions are irrelevant. With respect, Ms. Cole, you're the CEO. Your relationship choices will be scrutinized. There may be questions about favoritism, about whether Ethan has received or will receive special treatment. Then they can review Ethan's performance records for the past 4 years and see that every promotion, every raise, every recognition he's received has been earned through exceptional work. Maris's voice had taken on an edge. My personal life is not up for committee review, Patricia. I've disclosed the relationship as required. I'm taking steps to restructure reporting lines. Beyond that, I expect my privacy and Ethan's to be respected. Patricia nodded slowly. Of course. I'll draft the new job description based on your specifications and have it ready for review tomorrow. They left her office together, maintaining careful distance in the hallway. Back at Ethan's desk, Maris paused. "Director of Executive Operations," she said quietly. "It's actually a better position, more visibility, broader scope, higher ceiling for advancement." "You don't have to create a new job for me," Ethan said. "I'm not creating it for you. I'm creating it because it should exist, and you're the perfect person to fill it." She glanced around, making sure they weren't overheard. "This isn't favoritism, Ethan. This is recognizing talent and structuring the organization properly, two separate things that happen to benefit us both." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and crisis management. A supplier in Vietnam had quality control issues. The legal team needed input on a contract dispute. The IT department was implementing new security protocols that required executive approval. Normal Monday chaos, made stranger by the constant awareness of Maris's presence and the whispers that followed Ethan everywhere. At 6 o'clock, Lily called from Miss Rodriguez's apartment. "Dad, when are you coming home?" "Soon, sweetheart. Another hour, maybe." "Is Miss Cole there? Can I say hi?" Ethan glanced at Maris's office. The door was open, and he could see her on a call, gesturing emphatically. "She's busy right now." "Okay. Tell her I finished my wind turbine improvements, and I want to show her this weekend if she has time." "I'll tell her." "Love you, Dad. Don't work too late." He ended the call to find Maris standing in her doorway, jacket off, looking exhausted. "Was that Lily?" "Yeah, she wants to show you her updated wind turbine design this weekend." Something soft crossed Maris's face. "I'd like that. If you're free Saturday, maybe we could take her somewhere. The Science Museum has a renewable energy exhibit that might interest her." "That sounds—" Ethan stopped himself, aware that several people were still in the office, definitely listening. "We can discuss it later." "Right, later." Maris looked like she wanted to say more, but David Chen emerged from his office with a stack of reports, and the moment passed. Ethan left at 7, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day. The drive home felt longer than usual, his mind replaying every interaction, every whispered conversation, every complicated look. This was his life now, navigating the space between professional and personal, between what people saw and what was real. At home, Lily was full of questions about his day, about whether everyone at work knew about Ms. Cole, about whether this meant they'd see her more often. Ethan answered as honestly as he could while making dinner, trying to balance transparency with age-appropriate information. "So she's really your girlfriend now?" Lily asked, twirling spaghetti on her fork. "We're dating," Ethan clarified, "which means we're seeing if we work well together outside of work." "You already work well together. You talk about her all the time, about how smart she is and how hard she works, and how she always knows the right answer." "I do not talk about her all the time." Lily gave him a look. "Dad, you totally do. It's actually kind of cute. Miss Rodriguez says you get this voice when you mention her, like you're proud to work for her." Ethan felt his face heat. "We should talk about something else." "Why?" "I think it's good that you like someone. You've been alone for a really long time." Lily's expression turned serious. "I know you were sad after Mom left. You tried to hide it, but I could tell. And I want you to be happy, Dad. Really happy, not just okay." The wisdom of 9-year-olds never failed to gut him. Ethan reached across the table, taking Lily's small hand. "I am happy, sweetheart. I have you, I have a good job. I have a life I'm proud of." "But now you have Ms. Cole too," Lily said simply. "And that makes it even better, right?" "Yeah," Ethan admitted. "It does." His phone buzzed with a text from Maris. "Made it home. Thinking about you. About today. About how hard this is going to be and how worth it you are. Sleep well." Ethan stared at the message, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. He typed back, "Lily wants to show you her wind turbine Saturday. Science Museum after?" The response came immediately. "Perfect. I'll pick you both up at 10. This is a date, by the way. Our first official one." Lily was watching him with knowing eyes. "That's her, isn't it? You have that face again." "What face?" "The happy one you try to hide." She stood collecting their dishes. "I'm glad, Dad. You deserve the happy face." After Lily went to bed, Ethan sat alone in his living room processing the chaos of the past 48 hours. Saturday night, he'd been at a college reunion, being torn apart by his ex-wife. Sunday, he'd agreed to date his boss. Monday, he'd navigated office gossip and HR protocols and the complicated reality of making this work. And through it all, one truth had become increasingly clear. He wanted this. Wanted Maris in his life, wanted to see where this could go, wanted to be brave enough to reach for something extraordinary instead of settling for safe. His phone rang, Maris's name on the screen. "Hi," he answered. "Hi." Her voice was soft, tired. "I couldn't sleep. Keep thinking about everything that could go wrong." "Me too." The board might not approve the new position. HR might find some obscure policy that makes this impossible. The gossip might become unbearable. One of us might realize this was a mistake, and then we'll have destroyed a perfect working relationship for nothing. "Is that what you think?" Ethan asked quietly. "That this might be a mistake?" "No." The word came out fierce. "But I'm terrified anyway. I don't do relationships, Ethan. I don't let people in. I've built my entire life around being self-sufficient and not needing anyone, and now suddenly I need you, and I don't know how to handle that." Ethan closed his eyes, letting her words settle into him. "I'm terrified too. I haven't dated since Brianna. I don't know how to do this, especially not with someone as incredible as you. Someone who could have anyone and chose me." "You're incredible too," Maris said softly. "You just can't see it because you've spent so long making yourself small. But you're not small, Ethan. You're extraordinary, and I'm done pretending I don't see it." They talked for another hour about nothing and everything. About Lily's wind turbine and office politics and what they'd do on Saturday. About fears and hopes and the strange, terrifying beauty of trying something new. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt steadier. This was complicated and scary and potentially catastrophic for both their careers, but it was also real and honest and worth fighting for. He checked on Lily one more time before bed, finding her asleep with her science project notes scattered across her covers. He gathered them carefully, setting them on her desk, and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "We're going to be okay," he whispered to his sleeping daughter. "All of us. Somehow we're going to figure this out." And for the first time in 7 years, Ethan Parker let himself believe that maybe happy endings weren't just for other people. Maybe they were for quiet single fathers and billionaire CEOs who were brave enough to take a chance on each other. Maybe they were for him. Tuesday morning brought unexpected complications in the form of an email from the board chairman requesting a meeting with Maris about recent developments affecting company culture. Ethan saw it first when he arrived at 6:30, scanning Maris's inbox as part of his daily routine, and his stomach dropped. He forwarded it to her personal phone with a simple message. "We have a problem." She called within minutes. "I saw it. Don't panic." The board chairman doesn't request meetings about company culture unless someone complained. "Then we handle it." Maris's voice was calm, but Ethan could hear the tension underneath. "I have the COO's support for the new position. Patricia from HR confirmed yesterday that we're following all protocols. We've done nothing wrong, except start a relationship that's making people uncomfortable. Their comfort is not my responsibility, Ethan. Our integrity is." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Are you having second thoughts? Because if this is too much, if the scrutiny is too intense, I'll understand." Ethan thought about backing away, about how much simpler his life would be if he just said, "Yes, this was too much. Let's go back to being professional colleagues," and nothing more. But then he thought about Saturday, about Lily's excitement, about the science museum, and the possibility of building something real with someone who saw him clearly. "No second thoughts," he said firmly, "but I think we need to be prepared for this to get worse before it gets better." The meeting with the board chairman was scheduled for 11. Ethan spent the morning preparing materials for Maris's other meetings, hyper-aware of every whispered conversation, every curious glance. Janet from accounting stopped by his desk with coffee and sympathy. "For what it's worth, most people think it's romantic," she said, setting the cup down. "The photos from the reunion are all over social media. People are calling it a modern fairy tale." "That's not helpful, Janet." "I know, but maybe it's better than them thinking it's scandalous." She hesitated. "There are a few people saying things, though, about favoritism, about whether you've been getting special treatment, Marcus from legal was asking questions yesterday about your promotion history. Ethan's jaw tightened. My promotion history is documented and earned. I know that. Everyone who actually works with you knows that. But Marcus is friends with someone on the board, and he's been making noise about corporate governance and appropriate boundaries. After Janet left, Ethan pulled his own personnel file, reviewing every performance evaluation, every raise, every promotion over the past 4 years. The documentation was thorough and clear. He'd started as a junior assistant and worked his way up through consistent excellence and expanding responsibilities. Nothing unusual, nothing that suggested favoritism. But he knew how these things worked. In the court of office politics, perception mattered more than facts. At 10:45, Maris emerged from her office looking every inch the powerful CEO. She'd chosen her armor carefully, a charcoal suit that was both professional and commanding, minimal jewelry, her hair pulled back severely. This was Maris Cole, the business legend, not the woman who'd held Ethan's hand and talked about being terrified. "Ready?" she asked quietly. "Are you?" "I've faced hostile takeover attempts and shareholder revolts. I can handle one board chairman," but her eyes betrayed her worry. "Come with me. Take notes. Be professional." They rode the elevator to the 50th floor in silence. The board chairman, Richard Morrison, had his own suite of offices that made even Maris's look modest. His assistant showed them in with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Morrison was in his late 60s, silver-haired and imposing, with the kind of presence that came from 4 decades of corporate power. He stood when they entered, shaking Maris's hand with professional courtesy before nodding at Ethan. "Mr. Parker, I'm glad you're here as well. Please, both of you, sit." Ethan took his usual position slightly behind and to the left of Maris, tablet ready for notes. Morrison settled behind his massive desk, steepling his fingers. "Maris, I'll get straight to the point. I've received concerns from several board members about your relationship with Mr. Parker here, concerns about optics, about potential conflicts of interest, about whether this reflects poorly on the company's governance standards. I've disclosed the relationship to HR and we're implementing appropriate structural changes," Maris said evenly. "All protocols are being followed." "I'm sure they are, but protocols don't address the larger question of judgment." Morrison's gaze flickered to Ethan, then back to Maris. "You're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Your personal life is public in ways that ordinary employees' lives are not. Dating your direct report, regardless of structural changes, creates an appearance of impropriety. With respect, Richard, my personal life is not subject to board approval as long as I'm following company policy. Your personal life affects company reputation." Morrison pulled out a tablet, turning it to face them. "These photos from your college reunion have been picked up by business media. There are articles speculating about your relationship, about whether this represents a pattern of poor judgment. Some are questioning whether someone who makes impulsive personal decisions is fit to lead a company of this size." Ethan felt anger flare in his chest, but Maris's expression remained perfectly calm. "Impulsive?" she repeated, her voice dangerous. "Richard, I've known Ethan for 4 years. I've worked with him daily, observed his character and competence in countless high-pressure situations. There's nothing impulsive about recognizing quality when I see it. That's not how it looks from the outside. From the outside, it looks like a powerful woman having a fling with her subordinate. It raises questions about every decision you've made regarding Mr. Parker's career trajectory." "Then perhaps the outside needs better information," Maris said coolly. "Ethan's personnel file is impeccable. His performance evaluations, all conducted with input from multiple executives, consistently rate him in the top tier. His promotions were recommended by HR based on expanding job responsibilities and market comparisons. If you'd like, I can have Patricia provide documentation proving that every aspect of his compensation and advancement has been handled according to standard protocols." Morrison's expression didn't change. "Documentation can be manipulated." "Are you accusing me of falsifying personnel records?" Maris's voice dropped 20 degrees. "Because that's a serious allegation, Richard, one I hope you're prepared to substantiate. I'm saying the appearance of impropriety is enough to cause problems. Board members are uncomfortable. Shareholders might have questions. This could become a distraction we don't need, especially with the Singapore expansion launching next quarter." Ethan couldn't stay silent any longer. "Mr. Morrison, may I speak?" Morrison looked surprised, but nodded. "Of course." "I understand the board's concerns about optics and governance, but I want to be clear about something." Ethan kept his voice steady, professional. "Ms. Cole and I began a personal relationship this past weekend. Not 4 years ago when I was hired, not gradually over time while I was her direct report. This weekend. Everything before that was entirely professional." "Can you prove that?" Morrison asked. "Can anyone prove the absence of something?" Ethan countered. "But I can tell you that my work speaks for itself. I've managed complex operations, coordinated international logistics, handled sensitive information with discretion. I've stayed late when needed, arrived early when required, and never once asked for special treatment. If my relationship with Ms. Cole causes people to question my competence or integrity, then those people don't actually know me or my work." Morrison studied him for a long moment. "You're very articulate, Mr. Parker. I can see why Maris values you." "I'm articulate because I'm good at my job," Ethan said quietly. "Not because of any personal relationship." "The two are not mutually exclusive in the eyes of many." Morrison turned back to Maris. "I'm not asking you to end the relationship. I can't do that, and frankly, I wouldn't want to. But I am asking you to consider the impact on the company, on your leadership, on the board's confidence in your judgment." "My judgment built this company into what it is today," Maris said, her voice hard as steel. "My judgment navigated us through the 2020 crisis when half our competitors went under. My judgment identified opportunities that tripled our market value in 3 years. And my judgment tells me that Ethan Parker is one of the most valuable people in this organization, relationship or not. I don't doubt his value. I doubt the wisdom of mixing personal and professional in such a visible way." "Then we'll be less visible," Maris said. "We're already restructuring reporting lines. We'll maintain appropriate professional boundaries at work. Beyond that, my private life remains private." Morrison sighed, suddenly looking older. "Maris, I've known you for 15 years. I've watched you build something extraordinary here. I don't want to see that jeopardized by a relationship that might not last." "And if it does last?" Maris asked. "If this turns into something permanent and meaningful, do I sacrifice that for corporate optics?" "I'm saying be careful, be smart. Be aware that every decision you make now will be scrutinized through the lens of this relationship." Morrison stood, signaling the meeting's end. "The board will discuss this at next week's meeting. I suggest you come prepared to address their concerns directly." They left his office in tense silence. In the elevator, Maris stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. "That went better than I expected," she said finally. "He basically threatened your position." "He reminded me that I have responsibilities beyond my personal happiness. There's a difference." She glanced at Ethan. "Are you okay?" "I just defended our relationship to the board chairman of a Fortune 500 company. I'm not sure okay covers it." The elevator doors opened on the 43rd floor. They stepped out to find half the executive staff pretending to be busy while obviously waiting for news. Maris walked past them all with her head high, Ethan following a step behind. In her office, door closed, Maris finally let her composure crack. She leaned against her desk, closing her eyes. "This is going to be harder than I thought," she said quietly. "We can stop," Ethan offered, even though the words felt like glass in his throat. "If this threatens your career, if it puts the company at risk, don't." Her eyes snapped open. "Don't you dare sacrifice yourself to make this easier for me. That's what you always do, Ethan. You make yourself smaller to accommodate everyone else. But I won't let you do that for this. For us." "Then what do we do?" "We do exactly what Morrison suggested. We're careful, we're smart. We maintain professional boundaries here and keep our personal life genuinely private." She crossed to him, close enough that he could see the determination in her eyes. "And we don't let them make us ashamed of something good." A knock interrupted them. David Chen poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation with the Singapore contract. They've moved up the implementation timeline by 2 weeks." Maris immediately shifted back into CEO mode. "Get everyone in the main conference room. Ethan, pull all the project files and timeline documentation. We need to figure out if this is even feasible." The rest of the day was consumed by crisis management. The Singapore expansion was the company's biggest project in 5 years, and an accelerated timeline meant coordinating across departments, renegotiating with vendors, and completely restructuring the implementation plan. Ethan worked alongside Maris and the executive team, doing what he did best, keeping everyone organized, anticipating needs, solving problems before they became crises. By 7 o'clock, they had a revised plan that might actually work. The conference room emptied slowly, people heading home exhausted. Ethan was packing up materials when Maris touched his shoulder. "You were brilliant today. In Morrison's office and here. This is why I can't imagine working without you." "You'd manage," Ethan said, though her words warmed something in his chest. "I'd survive. It's not the same thing." She glanced at the door, making sure they were alone. "Saturday still on? Or is that too visible, too risky?" "Lily would never forgive me if I canceled. She's been talking about the Science Museum nonstop." "Good. Because I've been looking forward to it too." Maris smiled, tired but genuine. "A real date. With your daughter as our chaperone. Very traditional." "Nothing about this is traditional, Maris." "No," she agreed. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe traditional is overrated." Ethan drove home through evening traffic, his mind churning. The board was unhappy. Morrison was skeptical. The entire company was watching and judging and speculating. Every choice they made now would be examined, criticized, potentially used against them. But underneath the worry, there was something else, a stubborn certainty that this mattered, that Maris mattered, that walking away would be the easier choice but not the right one. At home, Lily was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up when Ethan entered, her expression immediately concerned. "Bad day?" "Complicated day," Ethan corrected, dropping his bag and pulling her into a hug. "How was school?" "Good. Maya's mom asked if we're really dating Ms. Cole, and I said yes, and she said that's very exciting and also very grown-up and complicated." Lily pulled back, studying his face. "Is it too complicated, Dad? Is it causing problems?" Ethan sat down beside her, choosing his words carefully. "Some people at work are uncomfortable with me and Ms. Cole dating because she's my boss. They think it might look bad or cause issues." "But you didn't do anything wrong," Lily said indignantly. "I know. But sometimes in the grown-up world, how things look matters almost as much as how things actually are." "That's stupid." "It's reality," Ethan said gently. "But here's the thing, sweetheart. Even with the complications, even with people being uncomfortable, I still think this is worth it. Ms. Cole is worth it." Lily's face split into a grin. "So Saturday is still happening?" "Saturday is definitely still happening." She cheered and went back to her homework with renewed energy. Ethan made dinner, helped her finish her math problems, and tried not to think about board meetings and professional scrutiny and all the ways this could still fall apart. His phone buzzed around 9. A text from an unknown number. "Ethan, this is Brianna. We need to talk." He stared at the message, feeling ice slide down his spine. Brianna had his number. She'd kept it after the divorce for emergencies involving Lily, but she'd never used it. In 7 years, every communication had been through lawyers or formal written correspondence. He didn't respond. Whatever she wanted, it couldn't be good. 3 minutes later, another text. "I saw the photos from the reunion, and the articles about you and Maris Cole. We need to discuss how this affects Lily." Ethan's jaw tightened. Brianna had never cared how anything affected Lily before. She sent a check every month, court-ordered child support, and occasionally remembered birthdays, but she'd made it clear years ago that active parenting wasn't her interest. He texted back, "Lily is fine. This doesn't concern you." The response came immediately. "I'm her mother. Everything concerning you concerns me. I'll be in town next week. We should meet." Ethan deleted the conversation and blocked the number. He'd deal with Brianna if she actually showed up, but he wasn't going to engage with whatever game she was playing now. Wednesday and Thursday passed in a blur of work and speculation. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday, and the tension in the office was palpable. People were choosing sides, some supporting Maris and Ethan, others questioning the propriety of their relationship. Ethan heard fragments of conversations, poor judgment, setting a bad precedent, none of our business, and tried to tune them all out. Patricia from HR called him in on Thursday afternoon with the formal job description for Director of Executive Operations. It was exactly what Maris had proposed: broader scope, higher visibility, reporting to the COO instead of Maris directly. The board will review this Tuesday, Patricia said, sliding the document across her desk. If approved, the change would be effective immediately. And if they don't approve it, Patricia's expression was sympathetic, then we'll have to explore other options, possibly a transfer to a different department or location. Location? You mean I'd have to leave the city? It's one possibility, not ideal, but if the board insists on complete separation of your working relationship with Ms. Cole, it might be necessary. Ethan left her office feeling numb. He hadn't considered that pursuing this relationship might mean leaving his job entirely, uprooting Lily from her school and friends, starting over somewhere new. The thought made him sick. That evening, he told Maris about Brianna's texts and Patricia's warning about potential relocation. They were on the phone, their new routine, talking after Lily went to bed, and he could hear her sharp intake of breath. They can't force you to relocate. That would be constructive dismissal. They can make staying untenable, Ethan said quietly. And honestly, if the board insists, maybe it's the right thing to do. For you, for the company. For me? Maris's voice rose. Ethan, you being forced out of a job you're excellent at is not good for me. It's not good for anyone except people who think optics matter more than substance. Sometimes optics do matter more than substance. You know that. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I'm not letting you sacrifice your career for this. If the board won't approve the new position, I'll find another solution, even if it means stepping down. You can't step down. You built this company. And I'd burn it to the ground before I let them force you out for doing nothing wrong. The fierceness in her voice made Ethan's chest ache. You matter more than the company, Ethan. You and Lily matter more than any of this. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean it. I've spent 20 years building my career, sacrificing relationships and personal happiness for professional success. And for what? To be told by a board of old men that I can't pursue something real because it makes them uncomfortable? She laughed, bitter and sharp. I'm done letting other people's comfort dictate my choices. They talked until midnight, working through scenarios and backup plans, and the very real possibility that this might cost both of them more than they'd anticipated. When they finally hung up, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was brave enough to see this through. Friday morning brought unexpected news. The business media had picked up the story, running pieces about the billionaire CEO and her secretary with varying degrees of sensationalism. Some portrayed it as a modern romance. Others questioned Maris's judgment and professionalism. One particularly vicious column suggested that Ethan was a gold digger who'd manipulated his way into Maris's affections. Ethan read that one in his car before work, his hands shaking with anger. The columnist had dug into his background, found the divorce records, interviewed someone from the reunion, probably Brianna or one of her friends, who painted him as desperate and calculating. He forwarded it to Maris with a simple message. This is what we're dealing with. Her response, ignore it. Lies don't deserve our attention. But ignoring it was impossible when it was the talk of the entire office. People avoided looking at him directly, their discomfort obvious. Marcus from legal made a point of commenting loudly about gold diggers and men who used relationships to advance their careers. At lunch, Ethan sat alone in his car, seriously considering calling in sick for the rest of the day. His phone rang. Maris. Where are you? She asked without preamble. Parking garage, taking a mental health break from being the office pariah. Come to my office, now. Maris, I don't think... Now, Ethan. He went, wondering if this was it, if she'd finally decided the cost was too high. In her office, she was pacing, her phone in her hand. I just got off a call with our PR team, she said. They want to release a statement about our relationship. Frame the narrative before it gets more out of control. What kind of statement? The truth. That we've known each other for 4 years professionally, that a personal relationship only recently developed, that all appropriate protocols are being followed, and that my personal life doesn't affect my ability to lead this company. That'll just add fuel to the fire, Ethan said. Maybe. Or maybe it takes away the power of speculation. She stopped pacing, facing him directly. But I won't do it without your permission. This affects you too. Lily too. If you want to keep this private, we keep it private. Ethan thought about Lily, about the potential fallout of having their relationship splashed across business media. But he also thought about Saturday, about teaching his daughter that good things were worth fighting for even when the fight got ugly. Release the statement, he said, but make sure it's clear. You're not apologizing for anything. We're not ashamed of this. Maris smiled, fierce and proud. Never. The statement went out Friday afternoon, carefully worded and unapologetic. The media response was immediate and divided. Some praised Maris for being transparent. Others doubled down on criticism. Social media erupted with opinions from people who knew nothing about either of them but felt entitled to judge anyway. Through it all, Ethan kept working, kept showing up, kept proving through his actions that he was exactly who he'd always been, competent, professional, and worthy of his position regardless of his relationship status. Saturday morning finally arrived, bringing with it a sense of reprieve from the corporate chaos. Lily was up at dawn, too excited to sleep, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on jeans and her favorite sweater with planets on it. "Do I look okay for a science museum date?" she asked anxiously. "You look perfect," Ethan assured her, his heart full despite everything. "But remember, this is my date with Ms. Cole. You're just along for the fun." "I know, but I want to make a good impression. She's important to you, so I should be good." "Lily, you're always good, and Ms. Cole already loves you." At exactly 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Ethan opened it to find Maris in casual clothes, jeans, a soft sweater, her hair down, looking nervous and hopeful and nothing like the powerful CEO who'd spent the week fighting for their right to be together. "Hi," she said. "Hi," Ethan replied, and suddenly all the stress of the past week faded into background noise. Lily appeared behind him, practically bouncing. "Miss Cole, you came! Are you ready to see renewable energy exhibits? Because I've been researching and there's so much cool stuff about wind power and solar panels and—" "Lily, let her breathe," Ethan laughed. But Maris was smiling, genuine and warm. "I'm absolutely ready. Lead the way." They piled into Maris's Tesla, Lily chattering nonstop from the back seat about everything she'd learned about sustainable energy. At the museum, Maris bought them all tickets and membership passes without asking, and Lily grabbed both their hands, pulling them toward the renewable energy wing. For 3 hours, they explored exhibits and watched demonstrations and listened to Lily's enthusiastic explanations of how everything worked. Maris asked thoughtful questions, engaging with Lily's passion like it was the most important thing in the world. And Ethan watched them together, his daughter and the woman he was falling for, and felt something settle in his chest. This was right. Complicated and difficult and potentially catastrophic for his career, but fundamentally, undeniably right. At lunch in the museum cafe, Lily excused herself to the bathroom, leaving Ethan and Maris alone for the first time all day. "Thank you for this," Ethan said quietly, "for making her feel important. She is important. She's brilliant and passionate and exactly what the world needs more of." Maris reached across the table, taking his hand. "This is what I want, Ethan. Not just you, but this. Family, connection, something real that matters more than quarterly earnings and board approval. Even if it costs you. Especially if it costs me. Because what's the point of building an empire if you have no one to share it with?" Lily returned, and they finished lunch talking about wind turbines and solar farms and Lily's plan to design a completely sustainable tiny house for her next science project. Walking back to the car later, Lily ran ahead to look at something in a store window, giving Ethan and Maris a moment alone. "I know this week was hell," Maris said quietly. "The board meeting Tuesday will probably be worse, but I need you to know I'm not backing down. I'm not letting them force you out or make us ashamed of this. Whatever happens, we face it together." Ethan squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her certainty. "Together," he agreed. They drove home through afternoon traffic, Lily falling asleep in the back seat, exhausted from excitement. At Ethan's apartment, Maris helped carry a sleeping Lily inside, settling her gently on the couch. At the door, Maris hesitated. "I should go. Let you both rest. Or you could stay," Ethan said. "For dinner. Just something simple, if you want." "I want," Maris said immediately. I really, really want. So she stayed and they made pasta together while Lily napped, moving around each other in the small kitchen with an ease that felt earned. And when Lily woke up to find Ms. Cole still there, helping her dad cook dinner, her smile was bright enough to banish every shadow of the difficult week behind them. This was what mattered, Ethan thought, watching his daughter and Maris laugh over something silly while sauce simmered on the stove. Not board approval or media opinions or office gossip. This. Connection and honesty and the courage to reach for something real, even when the world tried to convince you it was impossible. Tuesday would bring its own challenges. But tonight, in his small apartment with his daughter and the woman who'd chosen to fight for him, Ethan Parker let himself be happy. And that, he was learning, was its own kind of victory. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock, and Ethan woke with his stomach in knots, knowing that the next few hours would determine not just his career but possibly his entire future with Maris. He got Lily ready for school, forcing normalcy into their routine even though his hand shook while making her lunch. At the bus stop, she hugged him tighter than usual. "You're going to be okay today, Dad. I know it." "How do you know?" he asked, needing her 9-year-old certainty more than he wanted to admit. "Because you're you. You always figure things out." She pulled back, her expression serious beyond her years. "And because Ms. Cole won't let anything bad happen. She's like a superhero, but for real life." Ethan watched the bus pull away, carrying his daughter and her unshakable faith, and tried to absorb some of that conviction for himself. The drive to Cole Industries felt longer than usual. Ethan parked in his spot, rode the elevator to the 43rd floor, and walked into an office that had gone eerily quiet. People looked up when he passed, their expressions ranging from sympathy to curiosity to barely concealed judgment. Maris was already in her office, dressed in her most severe power suit, her hair pulled back tightly. She looked like she was preparing for war. "Morning," she said when Ethan entered with her coffee. "Morning. You ready?" "No, but I'm going anyway." She took the coffee, their fingers brushing. "Patricia sent over the final documentation for your new position. Everything's prepared for board approval." "And if they don't approve it?" "Then I have a backup plan." Maris's expression was fierce. Several, actually. Before Ethan could ask what those plans entailed, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her expression hardened. Brianna just walked into the building. Security called to ask if they should let her up. Ethan's blood went cold. What is she doing here? "I don't know, but I'm about to find out." Maris spoke into her phone. "Send her up." "Maris, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. Because whatever she's planning, I'd rather face it head-on than be ambushed later." She stood, smoothing her suit. "Stay. I want you here for this." 3 minutes later, Brianna Hale swept into the office like she owned it. She was dressed impeccably, designer everything, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Her eyes found Ethan first, dismissive and cruel, before shifting to Maris. "Ms. Cole, thank you for seeing me." "I didn't realize I had a choice," Maris said coolly. "You have 5 minutes. Make them count." Brianna settled into one of the visitor chairs without being invited. "I'm here about my daughter, Lily. I have concerns about the environment Ethan is creating for her." Ethan felt fury ignite in his chest. "You have no right. I have every right. I'm her mother." Brianna's voice was saccharine sweet. "And when I see my ex-husband engaging in a very public, very inappropriate relationship with his boss, I have to wonder what kind of example that sets for an impressionable young girl." "Inappropriate how?" Maris asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Oh, come now. You're his employer. The power dynamic alone makes this questionable. Add in the very public spectacle at the reunion, the media attention, the office gossip. It's hardly a stable environment for a child." "Lily is perfectly fine," Ethan said through clenched teeth. "She's happy, well-adjusted, and thriving. Something you'd know if you'd bothered to be part of her life for the past 7 years." Brianna's smile never wavered. "That's about to change. I'm filing for primary custody." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Ethan felt the floor drop out from under him. "You can't be serious," he managed. "Completely serious. I've already consulted with lawyers. Given the recent instability in your personal life, The questionable judgment you've shown in pursuing a relationship that's caused such professional turmoil, I think any judge would agree that Lily would be better off in a more stable environment. You abandoned her, Ethan said, his voice shaking with rage. You walked away and never looked back. You can't just decide now that you want her because it's convenient or because you want to hurt me. I can absolutely petition for a custody review. And given the circumstances, the media attention, the professional scandal, the fact that you're dating someone so publicly while trying to parent a young child, I think I have a compelling case. Maris stood slowly, and something in her movement made even Brianna pause. When she spoke, her voice was ice over steel. Get out of my office. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out, now, before I have security escort you out. I'm here as a concerned mother. You're here to manipulate and intimidate. You've seen the media coverage, realized Ethan might actually have something good in his life, and decided to destroy it because that's what you do. You tear people down to make yourself feel powerful. Maris moved around her desk, and Brianna actually leaned back in her chair. But you made one critical mistake coming here. And what's that? You threatened someone I care about, someone I will protect with every resource I have. Maris's smile was terrifying in its calm certainty. Do you know what I do for a living, Ms. Hale? I dismantle hostile takeovers. I find weaknesses in seemingly impenetrable positions and exploit them until my opponents have no choice but to surrender. And you just made yourself my opponent. Brianna stood, trying to recover her composure. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of reality. You want to file for custody? Fine. But be prepared for the most thorough, exhaustive legal battle of your life. Be prepared for my lawyers, the best in the country, to examine every aspect of your parenting history, every missed birthday, every forgotten phone call, every child support check you've sent instead of actual presence in your daughter's life. Maris stepped closer. Be prepared for them to question why, if you're such a concerned mother, you haven't seen Lily in person in over 3 years. Why you've never attended a single school event. Why your own daughter barely knows you. The courts favor mothers. The courts favor the parent who's actually been there. And that's Ethan. Exclusively Ethan. Maris's voice was relentless. You want to argue he's unstable because he's in a relationship? I'll bring in child psychologists to testify about Lily's well-being, teachers to discuss her academic success and emotional health, friends' parents to talk about what an engaged, loving father Ethan has been while you've been completely absent. Brianna's confidence was cracking, her perfect composure showing hairline fractures. You can't intimidate me with money and lawyers. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm telling you facts. You will lose this custody battle, Brianna, badly. And in the process, you'll rack up legal bills you can't afford and expose yourself to scrutiny you won't enjoy. Maris tilted her head slightly. Unless, of course, this isn't really about Lily at all. Unless it's about punishing Ethan for moving on, for finding happiness without you, for proving that he was never the problem, you were. The silence that followed was absolute. Brianna's face had gone pale, then flushed with anger. You don't know anything about our marriage? I know enough. I know that you tried to humiliate him at his reunion, and when that backfired spectacularly, you're now trying to hurt him through his daughter. I know that you're vindictive and cruel and willing to damage a child to serve your ego. Maris's expression was pure contempt. And I know that you're not going to win. Not this. Not against him. Not while I'm standing here. Brianna looked between Maris and Ethan, searching for weakness and finding none. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its confident edge. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Maris said flatly. You're going to walk out of here, contact your lawyers, and tell them the custody petition was a mistake made in haste. You're going to leave Ethan and Lily alone. And in return, I won't make it my personal mission to expose every ugly detail of how you failed as a parent to anyone who'll listen. You can't. I absolutely can. And I will. This is your one chance to walk away with your dignity intact. I suggest you take it. For a long moment, Brianna just stood there, her carefully constructed superiority crumbling. Then she grabbed her purse and stalked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back. You think you've won, she said to Ethan. But this relationship will destroy you. The board, the media, the gossip, it'll eat you alive. And when it does, when she realizes you're not worth the trouble, you'll have nothing. He has his daughter, Maris said quietly. He has his integrity. He has people who actually see his worth instead of trying to diminish it. That's everything that matters. Brianna left without another word. The office fell silent except for the sound of Ethan's ragged breathing. He sank into a chair, his hands shaking. She was bluffing, Maris said, but there was a question in her voice. Probably. Brianna's been using Lily as a weapon since the divorce, but she's never followed through because actually parenting would require effort she's not willing to make. Ethan looked up at Maris, seeing her clearly, fierce and protective and absolutely terrifying when defending someone she cared about. Thank you for that, for standing up to her. Did you think I wouldn't? Maris crossed to him, kneeling down so they were eye level. Ethan, I meant what I said in there, every word. I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you or Lily. That's what this means. That's what choosing you means. The board meeting is in 4 hours, Ethan said quietly. What if they force us to choose? Your career or this relationship? Then I choose you, Maris said without hesitation, every single time. Before Ethan could respond, Patricia from HR appeared in the doorway, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but the board has moved up the meeting. They want to convene in 30 minutes. Maris stood, her expression hardening back into CEO mode. Tell them I'll be there. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of preparation. Maris reviewed her presentation materials, her arguments for Ethan's new position, her defense of their relationship. Ethan organized documents and tried to calm his racing heart. At 1:45, they walked together to the 50th floor. Outside the boardroom, Maris paused. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know something, she said quietly. Meeting you, working with you, falling for you, that's been the best part of the last 4 years. Not the company growth, not the successful deals, not the recognition or awards. You. And I wouldn't change that for anything. Maris, I mean it. So if they make me choose, I'm choosing you, without hesitation, without regret. She pushed open the boardroom doors, and Ethan followed her into the lion's den. The full board was assembled, 12 members, all older, all powerful, all looking at Maris and Ethan with varying degrees of skepticism. Richard Morrison sat at the head of the table, his expression grave. Ms. Cole, Mr. Parker, please sit. They took their seats, Ethan acutely aware that he was likely the first executive assistant to ever attend a full board meeting at this level. Morrison folded his hands on the table. We've reviewed the proposed position of Director of Executive Operations. We've also reviewed the media coverage of your relationship, the office dynamics, and the potential impact on company reputation. He paused, looking directly at Maris. This board has some serious concerns. I'm prepared to address those concerns, Maris said evenly. I'm sure you are. But before we get to that, I think we need to discuss something more fundamental. Morrison pulled out a tablet, turning it to show a financial report. This is our Q1 performance, record profits, successful expansion into 3 new markets, and the smoothest operational quarter we've had in company history. Do you know who gets partial credit for that, Ms. Cole? Maris frowned slightly, uncertain where this was going. The entire executive team. Mr. Parker, Morrison interrupted. According to reports from every C-suite executive, Mr. Parker has been instrumental in coordinating operations, anticipating problems, and keeping everyone organized and on task. David Chen specifically mentioned that the Singapore expansion would have been a disaster without Mr. Parker's logistics coordination. Ethan felt his face flush. He'd just been doing his job. Morrison continued. I've also reviewed Mr. Parker's personnel file thoroughly. 4 years of exceptional performance reviews, consistent raises based on expanding responsibilities and market comparisons, recommendations from multiple executives, not just you, Ms. Cole. Everything documented, everything justified. Then what's the problem? Maris asked carefully. The problem is perception versus reality. Morrison set down the tablet. The perception, from outside media and some internal sources, is that Mr. Parker has received favorable treatment due to a romantic relationship with you. The reality, based on documentation and executive feedback, is that he's earned every advancement through exceptional work. Another board member, Elizabeth Warren, spoke up. I've been with this company for 8 years. I've watched probably 24 executive assistants burn out or quit in that time because the job is brutal. Mr. Parker has not only survived but thrived. That speaks to capability, not favoritism. So where does that leave us? Maris asked, and Ethan could hear the tension in her voice. Morrison looked around the table, getting silent nods from other board members. It leaves us approving the Director of Executive Operations position, effective immediately, reporting to the COO to eliminate direct reporting conflicts, with a salary increase commensurate with the expanded responsibilities. Ethan felt like the floor had tilted. You're approving it? We are, but with conditions. Morrison's expression turned serious. Both of you need to understand that this puts you under increased scrutiny. Your professional conduct must be beyond reproach. No special treatment, no appearance of favoritism, complete transparency in all business dealings. We can do that, Maris said immediately. There's one more thing. Morrison looked at Ethan directly. Mr. Parker, this board has concerns about your relationship with Ms. Cole. Not because we think you've done anything wrong, but because we worry about the pressure it puts on you both. The media attention, the gossip, the constant judgment, that's a lot to handle. It is, Ethan admitted, but it's worth it. Why? The question came from another board member, Gerald Huang. Why is a relationship that's causing this much turmoil worth fighting for? Ethan took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Because for 7 years, I've built my entire life around being enough, being adequate, showing up and doing my job and raising my daughter and not asking for anything more. I made myself small because I thought that was safe, that was smart, that was what I deserved. He looked at Maris, finding strength in her steady gaze. But Maris sees me differently. She sees the work I actually do, the value I actually bring, the person I actually am. And for the first time in years, I see it too. That's worth fighting for. That's worth the scrutiny and the gossip and all of it. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Elizabeth Warren smiled. That's the best answer you could have given, she said, because that's what we need to see. 2 people who understand what they're risking and choose it anyway because it matters more than comfort or convenience. Morrison nodded slowly. The board approves your relationship under the conditions outlined. We also approve the new position for Mr. Parker. But understand this, you're both being held to a higher standard now. One misstep, one instance of actual impropriety, and we'll revisit this decision. Understood, Maris said, her voice thick with emotion. One final thing. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Ms. Cole, you've built this company into something extraordinary. Your judgment has proven sound time and again. This board trusts you. We just needed to see that you understand the gravity of mixing personal and professional at this level. I do. We both do. Then this meeting is adjourned. Morrison stood, and the other board members followed. As they filed out, several stopped to shake Ethan's hand, welcoming him to his new role. When the boardroom finally emptied, leaving just Maris and Ethan alone, she turned to him with tears in her eyes. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her close, feeling the tension of the past week drain out of both of them. You did it. You fought for this. We fought for this, she corrected, pulling back to look at him. Together. That's how it works now. They left the boardroom hand in hand, not caring who saw, not caring about appearances. The executive floor had clearly been waiting for news. People emerged from offices the moment Maris and Ethan appeared, their expressions anxious. Maris addressed them all, her voice clear and strong. The board has approved Ethan's promotion to Director of Executive Operations. He'll be reporting to the COO effective immediately. I expect everyone to treat him with the same respect and professionalism you've always shown. Janet from accounting started clapping, and others joined in. Not everyone. Marcus from legal remained conspicuously silent, but enough that it felt like acceptance. Like maybe they could actually make this work. Back at his desk, Ethan found a message from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, thinking it was another reporter, but something made him open it. It was from Claire Donovan, the reunion organizer. Just wanted you to know Brianna left town this morning. Word is she contacted lawyers about custody, but backed off when they told her she had no case. Whatever you said to her, or your girlfriend said, it worked. Lily's safe. And for what it's worth, watching you stand up for yourself was the best thing I've seen in 20 years. Good luck with everything. Ethan showed the message to Maris, who smiled with fierce satisfaction. She won't bother you again. Brianna's a bully, but she's also a coward. The moment someone actually stands up to her, she folds. Still, thank you for standing up to her. Always, Maris said simply. The rest of the day passed in a haze of congratulations and logistics. The COO, Sarah Martinez, welcomed Ethan warmly to his new position and outlined his expanded responsibilities. Patricia from HR walked him through the official paperwork. David Chen stopped by to personally thank him for all his work on the Singapore expansion. At 6 o'clock, Ethan's phone rang. Lily's school. Mr. Parker, this is Principal Davidson. I'm calling because Lily told her teacher today that she was worried about a custody situation with her mother. I wanted to check in and make sure everything is okay. Ethan's heart clenched. He'd been so focused on the board meeting that he hadn't told Lily about Brianna's threat, hadn't wanted to worry her, but of course she'd picked up on his stress. Everything's fine, he assured the principal. Her mother made some noise about custody, but it's resolved now. Lily won't be affected. Good. Because I have to tell you, Mr. Parker, in my 15 years as principal, I've rarely seen a child as well-adjusted and secure as Lily. Whatever you're doing, it's working. After the call, Ethan sat at his desk trying not to cry. Everything had worked out. The board had approved his position. Brianna had backed off. He and Maris could actually be together without destroying their careers. It felt like a miracle. Maris appeared at his desk. Ready to go home? More than ready. They walked out together, past the curious stares and whispered speculation, and Ethan realized he didn't care anymore. Let people talk. Let them speculate. He knew the truth, that he'd earned his position, that his relationship with Maris was real and worth fighting for, that his daughter was safe and happy. That was all that mattered. At Lily's school pickup, she came running out with Maya, both girls chattering excitedly. When Lily saw Maris standing beside Ethan, her face lit up. Ms. Cole, you're here! I thought I'd join you and your dad for dinner if that's okay, Maris said. We have some good news to celebrate. Over pizza at their favorite restaurant, they told Lily about Ethan's promotion. She bounced in her seat with excitement. Does this mean you're not leaving? You're staying at your job? I'm staying, Ethan confirmed. New position, but same company. And you and Miss Cole can still be together? We can, Maris said, reaching across the table to squeeze Lily's hand. Everything worked out. Lily looked between them, her expression turning serious. Good. Because you make Dad happy, like really happy, the kind of happy he tries to hide but can't. The soft face? Maris asked, smiling. Exactly, the soft face, Lily grinned. He's had it a lot since you started coming over. After dinner, they drove Lily home. At the apartment, she hugged Maris goodnight with the easy affection of a child who'd decided someone was safe and important. Thank you for taking care of my dad, Lily whispered. Thank you for trusting me with him, Maris whispered back. After Lily went to bed, Ethan and Maris sat on the couch, finally alone after the chaos of the day. Maris leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. I can't believe we actually pulled this off, she said quietly. You had doubts? Constant doubts. Kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the board to force you out, or make me choose between you and the company. She shifted to look at him. I would have chosen you. I need you to know that. If it had come down to it, I would have walked away from everything I built. I wouldn't have let you, Ethan said softly. I know. That's one of the things I love about you. You're so busy protecting everyone else that you forget you deserve protection too. Maris touched his face gently. But you do, Ethan. You deserve someone who fights for you the way you fight for everyone else. Is that what you're doing? Fighting for me? Every day. For as long as you'll let me. Ethan kissed her then, soft and certain, and felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for years. This was real. This was worth every difficult moment, every scrutinizing glance, every bit of gossip and speculation. 2 weeks later, Ethan sat in his new office, smaller than Maris's but his own space, with his own assistant and his own responsibilities, reviewing coordination plans for the Singapore expansion. His phone buzzed with a text from Rachel Kim. Saw the announcement about your promotion in the business section. Told you the universe gets it right sometimes. Congrats. He smiled, typing back a quick thank you, then returned to his work. Through his window, he could see into Maris's office. She was on a call, gesturing emphatically, completely in her element. As if sensing his gaze, she looked up and smiled at him, private and warm and meant just for him. That evening, he picked up Lily from soccer practice. She was muddy and happy, talking non-stop about a goal she'd almost scored. Is Miss Cole coming for dinner tonight? She asked as they drove home. She has a late meeting, but she'll be over tomorrow. Good. I want to show her my new science project. It's about geothermal energy this time. At home while Lily showered, Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Ethan? It's Marcus Webb from the reunion. Ethan tensed. Marcus, what can I do for you? I just wanted to apologize for doubting you, for listening to Brianna's version of events without question. Marcus sounded genuinely remorseful. I saw the announcement about your promotion, read some of the coverage about you and Ms. Cole. Everything painted you as this calculating guy who used his position to get ahead. But that's not who you are, is it? No, Ethan said quietly. It's not. I should have known that. We weren't close in college, but I remember you. Always helping people, always reliable, never making a big deal about it. That guy wouldn't manipulate anyone. Marcus paused. Anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and congratulations. You deserve good things, Ethan. After the call, Ethan sat in his quiet living room, processing everything that had happened in the past 3 weeks. From humiliation at the reunion to defending his relationship to the board, from Brianna's threats to his promotion, from fear and uncertainty to something that felt remarkably like peace. His phone buzzed with a text from Maris. Meeting finished early. On my way over with Thai food. Hope you're hungry. Ethan smiled, typing back. Always hungry when you're cooking. See you soon. Lily emerged from the bathroom in her pajamas, her hair wet and tangled. Was that Miss Cole? She's bringing dinner. She basically lives here now, Lily observed, plopping down beside him with her hairbrush. Not that I'm complaining. I like having her around. Me too, sweetheart. Ethan took the brush, gently working through the tangles in Lily's hair. How would you feel if she was around even more? Like all the time? Lily twisted to look at him, eyes wide. You mean like living here? Maybe. Eventually, if things keep going well. Ethan kept his voice casual, not wanting to promise something that might not happen. Would that be okay with you? Are you kidding? That would be amazing. Lily threw her arms around his neck. She could help with homework, and we could all watch movies together, and maybe she'd teach me about business stuff and… Slow down, Ethan laughed. We're not there yet, but I wanted to make sure you'd be okay with it if we got there someday. I'm so okay with it, Dad. Ms. Cole is the best. She makes you happy, and she's really smart, and she actually listens when I talk about science stuff instead of just pretending. Lily pulled back, her expression turning serious. Plus, you've been alone a long time. You deserve someone good. The doorbell rang before Ethan could respond. Lily jumped up to answer it, and Maris entered carrying bags of Thai food, looking tired but happy. I ordered enough for an army, she announced. Hope you're both hungry. They ate dinner together. The three of them crowded around Ethan's small dining table, talking and laughing about their days. Maris told stories about difficult clients, Lily shared playground drama, and Ethan just listened, soaking in the warmth of having his two favorite people in the same space. After dinner, while Lily worked on homework, Maris helped Ethan clean up the kitchen. They moved around each other easily, the rhythm familiar now after weeks of shared meals. Lily asked me today if you were going to move in with us, Ethan said quietly, rinsing plates. Maris paused, dish towel in hand. What did you say? That maybe someday, if things keep going well. He looked at her. What would you say? I'd say I've been sleeping in my own apartment less and less because I'd rather be here. With you. With Lily. Even in this small space that's nothing like my penthouse downtown. She set down the towel, moving closer. I'd say that somewhere in the past month this place started feeling more like home than anywhere I've lived in 20 years. The penthouse has better water pressure, Ethan pointed out. It does. But it doesn't have you. Maris smiled. Or Lily's science projects all over the kitchen table. Or Miss Rodriguez's empanadas. Or the feeling that I'm building something that matters more than quarterly earnings. You're building an empire, Ethan reminded her. I've already built the empire. Now I'm building a life. There's a difference. 3 months later, Maris officially moved in. She kept the penthouse for appearances and tax purposes, but her real home became the 2-bedroom apartment that somehow fit all of them perfectly. Lily got to help design Maris's office space in the corner of the living room, and Ethan learned to share his small kitchen with someone who actually knew how to cook beyond basic pasta. The office gossip eventually died down, replaced by new drama and speculation. The Singapore expansion launched successfully, and Ethan's coordination work was publicly recognized by the COO. Maris continued being brilliant and demanding and exactly herself, while Ethan thrived in his new role, expanding his responsibilities and proving every day that his promotion had been merit-based. Brianna sent one more threatening email about custody, which Ethan's lawyer responded to with a detailed account of her 7-year absence from Lily's life. After that, silence. Occasional child support payments, and nothing more. 6 months after the reunion that changed everything, Ethan stood in Lily's school auditorium watching her accept an award for her renewable energy science project. Beside him, Maris clapped louder than anyone, her pride obvious and unashamed. "That's my girl," she whispered, and Ethan realized she wasn't talking about being Lily's stepmother yet. That conversation was still to come. But claiming her anyway, loving her anyway, choosing them both every single day. On stage, Lily caught sight of them and waved enthusiastically, her smile bright enough to light the entire room. And Ethan thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, standing in a hotel ballroom being torn apart by someone who'd never seen his worth. About how far he'd come from that moment. About how much had changed because one person had refused to let him be invisible. After the ceremony, they took Lily for ice cream to celebrate. She talked nonstop about her project, about the judges' questions, about how she wanted to study environmental and gentle engineering when she grew up. Maris engaged with every detail, asking thoughtful questions and making suggestions that made Lily's eyes light up. Walking back to the car later, Lily between them holding both their hands, Ethan caught Maris's eye over their daughter's head. She smiled at him, soft and private and full of promise. This was his life now. Not small or forgettable or background noise, but real and full and seen. He had meaningful work that challenged him. He had a daughter who was thriving. And he had someone who looked at him like he was extraordinary just for being exactly who he was. That night, after Lily went to bed, Ethan and Maris sat on the couch talking about the future, about Lily's college fund and the company's 5-year plan, and whether they should get a bigger apartment, or maybe even look at houses. "I never thought I'd have this," Ethan said quietly. "After Brianna, after the divorce, I thought the best I could hope for was adequate, safe, enough." "And now?" Maris asked. "Now I know I deserve more than adequate, that showing up matters, that quiet strength counts, that the right people see you even when you're not making noise." He pulled her closer. "You taught me that. You already knew it. I just refused to let you forget it." She kissed him softly. "You've always been extraordinary, Ethan Parker. I'm just the first person who said it out loud." Later, lying in bed, Ethan thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a college reunion where he'd been made to feel worthless to building something real with someone who saw his value. From accepting invisibility to claiming space in the world. From surviving to actually thriving. It hadn't been easy. The board scrutiny, the media attention, the office gossip, Brianna's threats. All of it had tested them. But they'd survived it together, stronger for having fought for what mattered. His phone lit up with a notification. An email from Richard Morrison sent late on a Friday night. Quarterly review shows record performance in operations coordination. "Well done, Ethan. You've exceeded every expectation." Ethan showed it to Maris, who smiled with fierce pride. Told you, she said. You're exceptional. Always have been. We're exceptional, he corrected. Together. Together, she agreed. In her room, Lily slept peacefully, surrounded by her science projects and dreams of changing the world. In the living room, Ms. Rodriguez had left a plate of empanadas with a note saying she'd made extra. Outside, the city hummed with late-night energy. And in their small bedroom that had somehow become home for all of them, Ethan held the woman who'd changed his life by refusing to let him hide, who'd stood up to his ex-wife and the board of directors and anyone else who suggested he was less than he was, who'd chosen him every single day and taught him to choose himself. This was his happy ending, not dramatic or flashy, but real and earned and completely his own. And finally, after years of making himself small, Ethan Parker took up exactly the amount of space he deserved in the world, which turned out to be quite a lot.